All right, we're live. Hello, everyone. This is the.
Hello, I'm Central Federation.
I am the narcissistic personality known as the Nero of Rome, and I'm still going to make that statue of me so everyone can worship me.
I am James Rufus, National Socialist 01.
Hey, you just doxed him, you wanker.
He
That
doxed
seems legit,
himself.
you clown.
Well, to be honest, though, a lot of people have said his name in other podcasts, and he hasn't really done anything. It's only if you don't show his face.
Yeah, but to be fair, Lewis does that too much. That's juvenile on his part.
Yeah,
Anyway, everyone introduce yourselves, starting with our very special guest, as far as we know, Asa. Say hello.
Hey guys, I'm an Australian cunt.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. But you should be proud of that, because
Yeah.
I am a Slavic dick.
Hey, will I be able to re-upload this stream?
Why not? I'm a Slavic dick, you're an Australian cunt. That goes together very well. That's a terrible joke. Okay.
Alright, so what do you guys want to discuss?
Okay, one thing I was willing to discuss is, economics. What are your guys' positions on economics? Like, me personally, I favor a mixed economy, like Northern Sweden and Denmark, where you have a private sector that's guided by a free market, but you also have wealth and income being redistributed to go towards things that are made for the good of the society as a whole, such as roads, public education, higher education, healthcare. But I do have differences compared to social democrats on the kind of how would you say, ways of providing these services. For example, I support a market-based universal healthcare system, like the employees' health benefits. What's your guys' opinion on the economy? How should it be ran? We'll start with America.
Well, I believe you can't have usury, for one thing. I think usury is a big problem.
So you agree with the phalangist that we should nationalize credit facilities while still respecting private property?
Yes.
Okay.
However, at the same time, I do support a free market for the most part, and just, everyday business and trade. But I don't think that trade should go to a point where it's just foreign countries are exploiting you and big corporations are taking jobs to other countries.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a good thing. I think, jobs should stay in the home country.
Os, what's your perspective on economics?
Well, you definitely need a market-driven economy that allows for essentially to change with the times. Basically having 10 companies do one thing, and if something changes, like a massive change, you're not going to have this like a dropout you would have with a nationally owned organization. So you definitely need the market so you can deal with unforeseen economic crises, and then that essentially capitalist market needs to be taxed at the point where you're providing at least minimal social services to the poor, just so that if say you're living in a country, as long as you're going to be provided for minimally, if say you lose your job, because let's face it, if that's not going to happen, your country's not going to help you out. Why the fuck go there? I mean, why the fuck stay there?
Are you defending welfare? Do you support welfare?
Mildly on welfare. I sort of see it as like how a business would support parts of their own company that don't exactly make a profit, but are sort of necessary for the overall production.
Yeah,
So
but
basically,
you
we see eye to
basically
eye
yeah,
on
but
economics.
you're basically stealing money from rich people and giving it to
Not
you're
really,
forcing
Lewis.
people. That is theft.
No, it's not, because money is a contract that you basically sign upon entering into a civilized
Yeah,
society.
but
And
you don't
money. You know what? Here's the thing.
grow without work.
Money is not paper. Money is not paper. Money is a credit. And if you if you had $1 million and that's represented by the amount of paper you own, and you go to a deserted island, that paper ultimately becomes meaningless. The credit is just simply redistributed upon its creation
Yeah,
when
but
you
it's
use
based
it in the
on gold.
market. That's not theft. If you don't want to pay taxes, there are several options you can take. One option is you go to Sahara Desert, Antarctica. Your dick will shrivel up there. What else is there? You could kill yourself. And I mean, taxation is voluntary in every way, unless you hate living in a civilized society.
How's that choice though? Because that's
Suicide's
not
not
really
a
a real
choice,
choice.
but Lewis, you're a libertarian. You believe that if people have a rational mind, they should be allowed to kill themselves.
Uh,
If you don't want to pay taxes, just go to your local gun store, point the gun to your head.
Well, just on that note,
So
Australia does have a minimum tax level. So if you want to avoid paying taxes, don't make a lot of money.
That is true,
That's
but
one way
that
of
also
doing it.
incentivizes people not to improve their property. In all seriousness,
yeah,
that's
but
why I
you're
Yeah,
still
favor
stealing.
low.
You stealing that. Even doing welfare is a fact that it increased poverty. Poverty
No,
has
it doesn't.
increased.
Because here's the thing, Lewis.
Yes,
When you get a welfare check, you have a certain
it-
amount of credit guaranteed to you.
before
And guess
before
what,
the
Lewis?
break.
Hold on, Lewis. I'm going to mute you if you don't shut up. Okay, Lewis, when you get a welfare check, and you can spend that welfare check in the market so that money circulates.
Oh, anyway, like I was trying to point out that the welfare. If you look at the history of welfare.
I'm sorry, we're having technical difficulties.
Luis, no one can hear you.
Okay.
No one can hear you, dude. Luis, we have to restart because no one can hear you.
No, just leave the call and join back in. Actually, just unmute yourself. Okay, there's Manuel. Hello, Manuel.
What's up?
Yeah, what's your position on economics?
Marxist?
Okay, describe how your economy would run.
Well, that's kind of putting the cart before the horse. You know, like
Yeah.
we don't create abstract models and then try to apply them to like post-revolutionary society. I mean, it organizes how we organize it and whatever we do at the time. You know, but I would assume it would be unexploitative labor.
Oh,
People
can you hear me now?
Yeah, we
cooperated.
can hear you. But I'm just going to say one thing to Lewis, and I'll ask Manuel some questions.
All
Lewis, when you receive a welfare check, you get a certain amount of credit from the government, and therefore you can spend that credit in the market. Thus, welfare actually helps contribute to the economy because you are buying commodities with this credit. Thus, you're actually helping. If you really think about it, welfare can be a handout for big corporations. I mean, Walmart relies on food stamps.
Yeah, but but it's useless anyway. Like, what's the difference having food stamps if people giving you real money? Also, like, it's encouraging people to be lazy. And also, if you look at the chart, if you look at the history in the poverty rate of America, the poverty rate increased during the creation of welfare. It's not decreasing
No, it didn't.
poverty. It's a
No, it
fact.
didn't.
Go look. Go look at the chart.
I will do that right now. Anyway,
It increased.
Oz.
Even a guy who supported welfare admits that the poverty rate increased during the
I mean,
creation
I'm
of.
not in favor of I'm not in favor of a benefits state. I'm in favor of a. In all honesty, I do like the idea of a basic income. If it's done properly, you can actually end benefits like food stamps and welfare while saving billions of dollars. It depends on how high it is. I mean,
Anyway,
I remember Bernie Sanders flirting with a $600 a month basic income. That is batshit insane. I mean, what's your opinion on the basic income?
Ooh, that's a. Well, all I know is if some people around where I live, if you didn't give them money to live, they'd be stealing shit. I know that. Sadly, that's a good thing. Like, if people haven't got enough money to live, then they'll get their resources somehow. And it's either you're giving them some basic level, or they're essentially stealing shit from you, which isn't very economic. Let's face it, they want a TV, it means you then have to pay for a broken window as well. Where it's probably just cheaper to buy them a TV.
Ethan, what's your opinion on a basic income? Could you see it working in your libertarian society? Ethan. America, just give your sentiment.
It depends to a certain extent, maybe. Like only for people who are like disabled or old.
No, I mean a basic income would be the opposite of welfare, where instead of like having like 52 government agencies and having tons of private agencies all contribute to food stamps and welfare, which requires billions of taxpayer money, instead you just simply give everyone like maybe $300 a month. That will at least help them with certain issues in their life. So, I mean, it would save money if you do it properly. If you have like a
welfare state.
Yes, I favor.
Only in very extreme cases. You shouldn't just let people leech off.
No, a basic income would be like where every citizen, regardless of class status, receives like $100 a month.
Oh, that doesn't work, trust me, because I went to a Native American sanctuary where they do that, and they live in extreme poverty as a result of that.
Yeah. Okay. Manuel, what's your opinion on a basic income? Could you see it working even in a third world country, since you are a self-proclaimed third worldist?
A basic income is just more concessions. I don't support it. I don't know, it has nothing to do with my politics. It's just like a minimum wage or free healthcare or whatever. It's not something that I really am concerned with.
Hey, what's your thoughts on libertarianism and a free market? And do you support a free market?
I say you want to have that market as free as possible, but have regulations in place just to, stomp out corruption.
Hey, Tom.
But do you think the market can regulate itself?
Do I think the market can regulate itself?
No. No, because
No, I mean,
it is quite possible for companies to get together and create monopolies.
Oh no, there's never been an example of a monopoly in a free market society.
Yeah, actually, Luis is right. But I mean, I generally think that some minimal regulations are necessary to protect the environment and public goods.
Environment, but not like businesses to protect the workers, because it will regulate itself.
Well,
What's
Lewis,
it called
you believe?
when
Sorry,
two companies? What's it called when two companies just join forces to crush little companies?
I think it's called
A merger.
It's called monopolistic competition, I think.
Yeah, it's not a merger, but just two companies that essentially they sort of exist in an arrangement.
Really, because when you're in a free market,
I think you're referring to an oligopoly.
Yeah. We have one of those with our supermarket chains, where
oligopolies can only exist when the government permits it. I mean, pretty much every monopoly in existence right now only exists because they have a government charter that allows them to exist.
If we look at the Rockefeller oil industry, it had a monopoly due to all the.
Okay, guys. I want to force a policy. because we're already having a lot of people joining them. If you're not speaking, please mute yourself so we don't have all this commotion. I'm gonna do what Vlad does on Friday night shitposting. So go on, Lewis. You were saying.
Luis.
I think he committed suicide. I'm just messing.
Well, I just want to say about monopolies.
Wait a minute. I do have to wonder, though, like, what if there was a voluntary monopoly? Like, what if there was a business that was able to outcompete different businesses because they obviously had the better product? Wouldn't you argue that if a monopoly was achieved without any government intervention, that would be a justified monopoly?
That's not a monopoly, though, because people are willing to buy their product because it's superior.
A monopoly would be where an enterprise controls a significant part of the market. And if a monopoly is voluntarily arranged without any government enforcement, unlike companies like Walmart and Microsoft, I don't see the problem.
Okay, but like, let's take WD-40 for example. They have an essential monopoly in the market for lubricants because they produce what pretty much everybody would agree to be the best like mechanical lubricant possible. That's not really a monopoly because they've just made a better product than everybody else.
What happened, Lewis? Why did you leave?
Because the mic stopped working apparently. Like I was about to say that the Rockefellers, they gave them like government support. I think it was I heard of it was a US's grant that he did a scandal where they allow the Rockefellers to mine on where that they to mine on oil where on government owned lands, like where other oil companies cannot enter or transpat. You know.
Yeah.
So every single monopoly, that's when monopoly was created. It came from the word monarchy, because it's when the government approves a single company to control all of a certain.
But a monopoly can be voluntary, though.
Ever been a monopoly in a free market? Never.
Okay, well, Taiwan has a monopoly, does it not?
Well, Taiwan has there's some government approval. There's no 100% free market.
Taiwan is like Taiwan is a very
not
successful.
According to the Freedom Index. The Freedom Index says the Hong Kong, even though it's decreasing.
Hong Kong's a city though. It's not a nation, and plus, here's a problem with that.
Hong Kong's have multiple cities. It has Victoria. It has something, I forgot what's it called. It has multiple cities in it, and it's a bunch of islands. You can't say specific. And it's way bigger than Nevada.
But Hong Kong is not a free market, because here's what they have. They have a batshit insane minimum wage. They have a public housing program.
Because of China.
But it's the Hong Kong government doing this. They're the one enacting the legislation to have these programs. They have universal health care in Hong Kong.
But at the time, when you talk about Hong Kong, you have to think about 1960 to 19...
But they're not a free market, that's my point. I already brought this up to you earlier. You brought up Hong Kong and Singapore as
it's still a free market. It's not as free than it used to.
Singapore is a free market country where the government owns 92% of the land. Wow.
No, free market. Owning land doesn't mean land is not a corporation.
But
regulated corporation is like.
Can there be state-owned corporations in a free market?
It's basically when companies own.
No. Answer my question. It's a yes or no proposition. Can a state-owned corporation exist in a free market capitalist system?
Yes, as long as they don't interrupt private organizations.
Okay, well, here's a problem with that. There's a state-owned corporation in Singapore that provides a significant amount of housing. That's not a free market, because they're interfering with the interests of private enterprises that build houses.
They're competing, but they're not they're not regulating a private company.
Okay, Oz, what's your position on this?
Lewis, instead of pointing out modern-day examples of free markets to defend, you should look to early 19th century United States, which is arguably the most free market that ever existed, because you had low taxes, you had very low government interference in the economy, and you had a giant explosion in the growth rate due to land speculation.
Was that
and-
before or after?
Yeah.
Was that before or during the Industrial Revolution, though?
During the Industrial Revolution.
Before?
During and
During. So you mean that time period where most people were highly impoverished? There was child labor.
Oh, wait a minute. You have to. For people who criticize.
At the time,
Okay, everyone, mute yourself when you're not speaking.
People who criticize the Industrial Revolution for bringing about poverty refuse to look at the alternatives. You don't realize that prior to the Industrial Revolution, most people lived had an agrarian existence, and food shortages were common. People regularly starved to death, and there was very low transportation from cities to cities.
I know the circumstances at the time made it so that children would have to work, but at the same token, you have to acknowledge that that government regulations and also government benefits and spending and to public works is the reason why, and also labor unions. Don't forget those evil, corrupt labor unions.
Yeah.
Those evil cultural Marxists. They're the reasons why child labor does not exist in the first place today.
Yeah, but at the same time, education systems are different. Like at the time, like children graduate like faster, and they also people were getting married.
No. My grandfather, he worked. Not my grandfather. My great grandfather. He never graduated from high school. He left 8th grade just to work at a mill. I'm sorry, but people did not graduate. They were forced to leave their schools and abandon a proper education just to go work at a mine or.
Yeah, but Nero, I don't understand. Like, I've never said that labor unions were cultural Marxists.
No. I'm making fun of the concept of like all these evil Marxist unions. Like, what would this world be like without unions?
I do realize that not all unions are Marxist. However, at the same time, I think guilds are better than unions.
What's the difference?
Well, a guild has.
Isn't a guild ran by a union, or isn't a guild just a syndicate of employees and employers mutually agreeing and running the enterprise democratically?
Well, actually, America, I would have to disagree with you on that. I would say that guilds are a lot worse than unions, because with a guild, they had a complete monopoly on that particular unit of labor. For example, back in the 18th century, the Wig Makers Guild had a complete monopoly on wig making, and they would actually regularly go around from town to town and smash up illicit wig making operations because they did not operate under that guild. Whereas in a labor union, people have to pay dues, and people have to like join in a firm or an industry that actually has that union. So they actually have somewhat of a choice in the matter, and you can operate outside the union.
That's a good point.
Okay, I want to move on.
I think that if we're gonna have
can you unmute? Like, do you sort of understand why regulations is pointless and how the market can regulate itself?
You never provided evidence, though, so that's a pointless.
With the Rockefellers and other evidence, and we proved that there's never have been.
Here's another regulation, though, Lewis. You heard of the Sherman antitrust laws? That law prevented monopolies of all different kinds.
Oh, wait a minute, Nero. I was actually going to bring this up earlier. The Sherman antitrust laws are completely useless. You realize that, right? The only time they are ever invoked is when we're talking about actually tiny corporations. For example, there was a very famous case in which the Sherman antitrust laws were invoked to destroy the Brown Shoe Company, which had merged with another small shoe company, and they would have gotten about 6 or 7% of the entire shoe manufacturing market. And the government determined that this was really bad. But meanwhile, you have companies like Budweiser, like Anheuser-Busch merging with Miller in the past couple of years, where they now have they've cornered about 67% of the beer making market.
Okay.
And yet the Sherman antitrust laws are useless. They didn't even try to use them. Because the Sherman antitrust laws, they're not meant to actually break up monopolies in practice. They're just meant to gain revenues for the government. It's
Okay.
completely corrupt.
Let me interject here because I kind of want to give other people a voice in this. Okay, so first, Oz, give your personal opinion, and then Manuel, and then Rex, give your opinions.
Okay. As far as I know, a completely free market system has never existed. There's always been some kind of authority there or some kind of regulation. So I think it's pretty much pointless to argue for a system with no regulation, no authority, because quite frankly, how do you know it will actually work? But we do know we have systems right now which have varying amounts of regulations, and I think it's probably best just to argue for either lowering or increasing regulations in certain areas because we actually have economic stats and figures to actually look at as opposed to a completely free market one where it's this dreamland.
Yeah, I mean, some aspects of the free market utopian is kind of, well, that utopia is unrealistic.
I mean, it happened. It existed in the past, and it's sort of, even though it's
But there was some government influence. Taxation is just one form of government influence.
but it was barely used.
Barely used. Are you aware that Abraham Lincoln imposed a 92, not Abraham Lincoln, but are you aware that the North, before the Civil War, imposed a 92% tax on southern states that had slavery? That's not a free market, my friend.
I said, well, actually, it's because they go back and forth. Like it's like, but it's still like a free market. Like I said, it's like it's like a graph, like how free your economy is. The more freer, the more free market you are.
I mean, but here's the thing, though. I mean, one of the first countries that are on the economic freedom scale is Norway. And Norway has a welfare state. They have some regulations over big businesses. They're even looking at a basic income.
I don't see Norway in the freedom index.
What about Denmark? Denmark has no minimum wage, yet they still have a welfare state and high taxation.
Denmark's not even that high. Like the highest ones I see is Hong Kong, Singapore, Australia.
And that's flawed because Hong Kong is far from a free market. Anyway, Manuel, give your thoughts on all this. What's your personal sentiment on what's being spoken about?
I haven't really been paying attention. I just got you guys in the background. I'm just.
Okay, Rex, what's your opinion?
It's kind of a dumb debate. I don't know.
Rex, what's your opinion?
On what?
On a free market, should we have a completely free market, or should there be some regulations or public services?
I think some regulation, not a lot, but some.
Okay. I mean, I support a strong public sector to provide roads, universal health care, but like the kind of universal health care I advocate for again is like just to clarify some for people who aren't aware. I support what Trump advocates for, which is you have a market-based universal health care system, like the Employee Benefits Agency, where you have a centralized agency, but the centralized agency provides benefits to employees through private competition between 620 insurance companies. That's the kind of universal healthcare I advocate for. A market-based one that encourages competition.
Yeah, but you know that the depression and suicidal rates of Denmark is influenced with the welfare state.
Oh my god, that sounds like a fedora tipping source you got that from.
I think that might be true, though.
Comes from a guy who keeps changing his ideology way too much.
I think you may be right on that, Luis. I'm not sure.
The guy who keeps changing his ideology too much, okay?
Wait, what'd you say?
I was selling that to the...
No, I think that, the welfare state probably does create a sense of depression. Because, these people don't work for...
The poverty rate of the United States increased ever since the welfare was introduced.
Especially in the black community, when they...
Tom, what do you think of the welfare state?
That's why, like, we actually have a debate over the issue on welfare, and almost all the blacks most of the black people in my class wanted to abolish the welfare state. Didn't even have people who wanted to stop it.
Well, I mean,
Okay.
as I have said before, I think that in regards to the welfare state, we need to make a distinction between the deserving poor and the undeserving poor. I'm not against granting some, benefits for people who are down on their luck and who just need like a boost to get back on their feet and start working again, and who legitimately need help. But I think that there's a certain class of people who are very substantial who just want to leech off of the government teat for their whole lives and don't want to contribute anything.
Hey,
And,
independent workman.
hey, and yeah, we need to make a distinction, because if we just have a welfare state that gives very generous gibs to everybody without any sort of distinction, then you're going to incentivize people to fail. You're going to incentivize people to just be leeches off society, and that's not good either. You need
Or
to have
be
that.
degenerate.
Yeah, you need to strike that moderate. You need to strike that golden mean, as Aristotle would say.
I agree with you, Tom.
Okay, independent workman, what's your opinion on the welfare state?
Um,
You evil commie traitor. I'm just kidding.
what I think about the welfare state, I mean, if I was a capitalist, I'd be full favor of the welfare state because it's basically concessions. You're just appealing to the masses by giving them like trickle down of just some stuff to barely survive.
Also, independent workman, how do you change your ideology? Because I know you used to you thought the idea that Marxism was extremely idiotic.
Well, it's simple. Started reading about Marxism.
You said you read it many times. You thought it was stupid.
I only read the Communist Manifesto once. But once you understand the context of the Communist Manifesto, it becomes clear.
But what is it about Marxism that made you change your mind?
Well, it's the glaring misconceptions that the right, don't understand. Like they either strawman Marx or they take quotes out of context.
But by the way, independent workman and Manuel, I have a question for both of y'all. What is your opinion on the buzzword used by the right called cultural Marxism? Do you think it's a real thing, you two?
I'll go first, I guess. Cultural Marxism was a term invented by Nazis as a slang term called cultural Bolshevism. So it was a term made up by Nazis. So
Yeah, but you also got many philosophers like, who was that Italian guy who wrote a book and influenced a
Antonio
lot of
Gramsci?
Yeah.
Have you actually ever read him, though?
Oh, Tom did.
Okay.
Yeah, I've read Antonio Gramsci.
okay. Well,
He used the founder. And you also got the school of what? Like, I forgot its name.
Oh, are you talking about the Frankfurt School?
Yeah.
Oh,
Is
it's
it French?
Gus. Hello, Gus.
Hello
Hey,
there.
Gus.
Long time no see.
Hail! Hail, Emperor of Rome! Hail, mighty Nero!
Yeah.
No, they're Canadian.
You still want to invade Canada, don't you, Lewis?
Fucking, we do it like we do with Bosnia. We gotta go there. Canadians left, and I'm gonna rape like Canadian women to make them have like American children.
Yeah. Okay, Gus, what's your opinion on the welfare state? Do you believe we should have a strong welfare state?
I don't know what a strong welfare state means. You mean a generous...
Generous one, I meant. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
what's your reasoning behind a generous welfare state?
Well,
I mean, these
we
guys
can-
are saying that. I'm sorry. These guys are saying it encourages laziness. It encourages people to fail.
No, it doesn't encourage
Yeah.
people to fail. First of all, have any of the people who say that it encourages failure, have any of you actually people actually been on the dole? Have you ever actually been on welfare or anything like welfare? If you're not in the
I know what you're gonna say. I know what you're gonna say. 'Cause I watched an entire debate on welfare. You're gonna say that they only allow you to have welfare if you get like a job.
you don't know what I'm going to say, so why don't you just answer the question?
Yeah, you're assuming things, Lewis.
But here's the thing, like
It's an ad hominem attack.
Well,
Don't
Gus,
have-
It's not an ad hominem attack. It's just you're trying to read my mind, which you can't do. I mean, and I wouldn't wish that you could because you'd go nuts up there.
well, Gus,
It's just a simple question, guys. Has anybody here been on welfare?
I have family who's on welfare, and they desperately need it because the family that I'm referring to, they have 2 children, and you know what? They have a hard time making the ends meet due to certain situations they went through in their life, and they need food stamps because they can't make the ends meet. They need some government help, and I think Vlad would say that they are in the well-deserving poor. But Lewis here is going to say that they shouldn't get anything.
well,
You guys are
Gus,
trying.
Gus, I just want to say that I
You
grew
guys are
up
really
in,
trying really
I
hard.
grew up in
not
a
to
city
just-
where it was very poor, and there were a lot of people who were receiving Ontario Works. And
Is that a yes?
I was never personally on welfare,
Okay.
but I knew many people who were. And I know that some of these people, in fact, were deserving. They were
So that's a no then.
they were just down on their luck, and they needed
I'm
it.
sorry. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not trying to choke the conversation. I've never seen anybody fight so hard not to answer a yes or no question. The thing is, when I was growing up, okay, I'm echoing really hard through somebody. Who am I echoing through?
Okay, everyone mute yourselves when you're not speaking.
Okay. I'm very familiar with Ontario Works as well. You know, when I was growing up, I knew a lot of people on Ontario Works, and for a while I had to be on Ontario Works. It doesn't promote laziness because it's a fucking starvation wage, okay? And I know people in the United States who, you know, I knew a couple of dudes who, particularly who lived in Alabama. You don't prosper. Who muted me? Why did they mute me? You don't prosper on welfare. Okay, you don't.
That was Gus. That was America. America, if you do that again, I'm gonna kick you out.
Jeez, America, don't be so mean. No.
He's not contributing anything to this call.
That was
though. I'm
my
just gonna kick him
accent.
out.
I was just
Okay. I was gonna kick you out.
Okay. All right, accidents happen. It's all right. I mean, I'm Canadian, so I have some mercy.
love it.
You know, I mean, the whole idea, like when I was on Ontario Works, and I was on it for a little while because when the .com bubble burst, okay. I live in Ottawa, which is the capital city of Canada. When the .com bubble burst, I mean, Ottawa was fixing to be Silicon Valley North. And when the .com bubble burst, fucking everything went to shit for about 2 years up here for the economy, okay? And so I was on for a little bit, and I'll tell you something. You don't get rich. You haven't got fucking money. You know, oh yeah, you can buy beer with your fucking money if you don't feel like eating for 30 days. You know, and I'll tell you, you know, there's a lot of people that, oh, I don't need to eat. Yeah, go ahead and try it. Go ahead and starve yourself for 5 or 6 days straight if you enjoy the hospital. Nobody gets rich on welfare. Nobody gets rich on welfare, and nobody enjoys being there. And these fucking myths of welfare queens and people on welfare who go out and buy Escalades, they're exactly that. They're myths. Okay, I went on long enough. I'm sorry.
Okay, just 2 questions before we continue on. First of all, what is your personal sentiment in regards to a basic income, something that I personally am in favor of? And secondly, why don't you bring up the fact that the United States, in the United States, there's a lot of prerequisites to actually apply for welfare, and there's also limits to the amount of time you can actually be on welfare. You have these people on the far right who are saying, look at all these damn niggers, they're abusing welfare, but they really have nothing to back that up, because in most cases, you only, one welfare program you can only be on for 3 months. The only way you can be on welfare for longer than 3 months is if you went through an economic situation and it's really hard to get out of it. I agree. You should get job training programs if you want to remain on welfare for like years. But what's your opinion on basic income, and what's your thoughts on question 2?
Basic. I mean, a basic income is something that's never been tried in the West, but I'd like to see it tried. I'm not going to pretend that I absolutely think it'll work, but it's worth trying on a trial basis, and it's worth keeping an eye on. But you fucking know the people on the right are going to piss, wail, and cry about it
That's true.
because they seem to think, they seem to think that poor people are just fucking schlubs, whereas you and I both realize that if fucking, if shit were worth money, poor people would be born without assholes,
That is true.
So, as far as limits to welfare, I mean, okay, Louis,
Mute yourself, you asshole.
Louis, you're killing me here. As far as things like limits to welfare, I mean, the United States many of the states in the United States have some of the toughest limits. Some of the toughest welfare programs out there, like in terms of limits, what you can claim, how long you can claim it. At the end of the day, to combine your question about job training and limit, you can't train people for jobs that don't exist, okay? An awful lot of really good jobs were shipped offshore, particularly from the United States, okay? A lot of good manufacturing jobs, a lot of good jobs that you don't necessarily have to have a lot of fucking school to have. Apprenticeships to the trades have fallen through the fucking toilet. It's extremely difficult to get those in both the United States and Canada. I mean, you can't train people for jobs that don't exist. And there's an awful, and in terms of, and here's one last thing, okay? Yes, high tech and entrepreneurship is for one thing. But there are dummies, relative dummies in the world, okay? And there's different ways to be a dummy. There's people who are intellectually dumb, socially dumb, But the people who frankly aren't smart enough to go into the IT business, aren't smart enough to be rocket scientists, aren't smart enough to be capitalists, they need to have a way to make money too. And they need to have a way to make money in such a way that they can make a living wage.
Okay, I agree with you. I mean, there are people who are unlucky. They're born unlucky, and I don't see any benefits to, unless you're a complete social Darwinist, I don't see any real reason to crack down on people who are poor for reasons outside of their control. However, what was I gonna say? Fuck it, I forgot what I was gonna ask you.
Well, let's throw the floor open. I mean, I'm sure there's all kinds of people that want a piece of me.
Okay, Oz, give your thoughts, if you're there. I don't think he's there. Okay. So
we whacked everybody's peepees and made them mute, and now they're all afraid to talk. Come on, guys.
All right.
I wasn't paying attention.
Oh well, that happens sometimes.
You weren't paying attention. Okay, so you should keep your mouth shut because you don't know what we're talking about. Because you don't know what we're talking about. So
since when has ignorance of the topic ever stopped people from opining?
That's true. That is true.
do you still denounce gun control, or are you sort of?
No, I'm against. We're not talking about gun control. Don't shift the topic. I'm waiting for another guy to join who is for gun control, so we can balance things out. Because even the two Marxists,
I'm for gun control.
I I want to balance it out because everyone, even the two Marxists, the two open Marxists here, Manuel and Independent Workmen, they oppose gun control, which is pretty amusing.
I'm for gun control.
I just want more balance. I want a friend of mine to join.
Yeah, I remember that last discussion we had.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, what am I, chopped liver?
Yeah, what's your thoughts on how mass-killing dictators confiscate guns?
How what?
How mass-killing dictators confiscate guns, like Hitler banned guns, Stalin banned guns, and Pol Pot banned guns.
Hitler didn't ban guns. Hitler only banned guns. Hitler only banned guns for ethnic minorities. If you were a German citizen and you received a gun in the military, you could keep it.
Well, actually, that's a common misconception. Hitler didn't ban the guns. Guns were already banned after World War I by the Weimar Republic.
Yeah, it was a ban. It was a ban honored more in the breach than the observance.
Yeah, and Hitler just continued those policies. He didn't
Because
actually take
the
guns.
Weimar Republic was the fucking Wild West, man. I mean, the Freikorps wandered around the Weimar Republic. The fucking nutty bands of radical trade unionists, radical communists. I mean, basically, half the fucking people in the Weimar Republic thought a gun could solve their problem. That's why there was one of the reasons there was such fucking chaos, particularly when the Depression began to fucking hit. Things really went crazy, But as far as Pol Pot banning the guns, I mean, it's not like every fucking peasant had a weapon at the time. It wasn't that difficult for him to do. And Stalin banning the guns, well, I mean, I suppose, but I mean, if you were a peasant, if you were a peasant farmer or on a collective out in the bush someplace, there were guns there because you fucking needed them. You fucking needed them because a wolf would come up and fucking eat your shit otherwise, like.
Well, wait, let me finish. Like, when you increase gun control, you're just decreasing civilians having guns and having government have guns, and they can't get. Then that will make them have access to commit atrocities such as the Holodomor or the gulags or the Cambodian genocide.
Lewis, even then, you can still have prisons with hard labor. For example, even in South Carolina, for example, the state that I reside in, that had like the least gun control back in the early stages of our history, there's still prisons where you would have to perform extremely physical hard labor. The United States has always had labor camps. The United States has always had labor camps, regardless of guns.
Those hard labors only happen for people who cannot pay their bail. They help. Those money is basically a job.
There were penalties that resulted in a minimum of X amount of years with hard labor. For example, look at Massachusetts. Look at Massachusetts Lewis, look at Massachusetts back in the 1930s. In Massachusetts, for example, homosexual conduct could result in up to 40 years imprisonment with hard labor. Hard labor was the minimum.
If you don't pay the bail?
No, it's right on the policies. You know anything about enforcing criminal statutes, Lewis? I mean, I'm planning on going to law school upon getting my bachelor's degree, but dude, I know more about the law than you do, arguably.
Well, by the way, going back to gun control.
Wait, one second. I just want to make a quick point about gun control because Lewis was bringing up the point, and I generally agree with it that a well-armed populace is the best defense against the government's tyranny. But let's not forget that it's also the best defense against foreign tyranny as well. I mean, it was General Yamamoto of Japan who famously said during World War II that you can't invade America because there's a gun behind every blade of grass. So,
well, Yamamoto said that as a form of propaganda, but the reason that you couldn't invade America had an awful lot more to do with the distance and logistics involved, and the fact that America was that you could drop the Japanese home islands into the United States continent and fucking lose them there. I would like to say though, it is not impossible for a populace to overthrow a government even without weapons. During the French Revolution, the iconic prison castle known as the Bastille was literally torn down during the initial riots of the French Revolution. Does anybody here know how it was torn down? By hand. By hand. The revolting French peasants. Yeah, the revolting French peasants. The revolting French peasants literally tore the cocksucker apart with their bare hands.
But you have to understand, though, that's a false equivalence, because back then muskets weren't that powerful of weapons. Well, AK-47s, they can just mow down people.
Oh, my friend. Basic physics says force equals mass times acceleration, and while the average musket doesn't fire very quickly, the average musket ball is fucking 78 caliber. You ever been hit with a 78 caliber round?
Yeah, that's true. Gus is right. If you get hit with a musket ball, you're not getting up from that.
Yeah, but at the same time,
So you're saying it's worse than an AK?
wait, at the same time, muskets are very hard to aim. That's why during the American Revolution, muskets will actually bounce out from the rod because they will just bounce from inside the rod and just miss constantly. They can even shoot sideways. If you
Well,
know,
I don't know what muskets you're talking about, because the United States the United States is a free country to this day because they were able to use their muskets against the British. It was tactics.
they
It
fought
was
muskets versus mucks.
it was tactics. It was tactics that did it. It wasn't, you know. But I mean, we're talking. You know, first of all, I mean, if we're talking about the efficacy of muskets against crowds, I mean, part of the problem was that the French army wasn't actually in Paris at the time that the initial stages of the revolution was going on. The French army was off fighting against the fucking Austrians, if I remember correctly. So there was that. But the home brigades that were left over, the palace guards and stuff like that, they were pretty effective. It's just that there were an awful lot more peasants than there were of them. And that's gonna be the Louis, what are you doing? Are you jumping up and down or something?
no, it's just
The thing to keep in mind is that in most states, tyrannies eventually fail, mostly because they collapse internally, and secondly because people eventually just get fed up and they take care of it by whatever means necessary. They don't necessarily have to have a shit ton of weapons to get the job done.
But in an age where the government has possession of fighter jets and artillery and drones and all that kinds of crap, don't you think it's necessary for civilians to have firearms in order to have some equal level of playing field?
I think you answered your own question, Tom. I mean, in an age where governments have tanks, armored fighting vehicles, grenades, drones, smart weapons, helicopters which can hover on station for Lord knows how long, and a satellite reconnaissance. I mean, how effective are a bunch of guys hold up on a ranch with a shit ton of weapons going to be anymore?
Hey,
But you
Gus,
could make the same argument about the American Revolution.
Tom.
You could say that, well, you know, your musket is no match for the glory of the British Empire with all their first-rate ships and their artillery and all that.
I want Manuel to speak. Manuel is the evil commie, and I want him to give his opinion on this issue.
Sure. I'll shut up for a sec.
Oh.
I don't know, you sound like you sound like a defeatist. I mean, this stupid argument of, well, the government has tanks, so the fact that you own a rifle still makes you unequal. It's like, well, then you should support anything that would make us a smidgen equal to them. I mean, it's like you've never heard of asymmetric warfare or guerrilla warfare. I mean, a bunch of Vietnamese fighters with Mosin Nagants, wiped out the U.S. military. You know
That's a very good point, Manuel. But remember, the Vietnamese had been fighting against occupation not just by the Americans, but by the French before them, by the Koreans, by the Chinese. For a while, the Japanese tried to occupy Vietnam. They had an unbroken chain, of partisanship, which means you're talking about successive generations of battle-hardened people who didn't just succeed because they wanted it. These people were battle-hardened. They were tough. They knew their territory. They were able to succeed on very little food, very little water. They were self-motivated. You know, most of the West does not share the capacities of the Viet Minh during the Vietnam War, or even before, during the French.
I don't dream of some kind of revolution happening in the first world anytime soon. People are just not going to do it. You're not going to tell a worker who makes $30,000 a year and has a union and a wife and kids and a car to go pick up a gun and fight the government. It's not going to happen.
Well, geez, Manuel, that's awfully defeatist.
It's realist, not defeatist.
Oh, well, I put to you
you realize
that a bunch of citizen infantry running against an M1 Abrams tank is going to be about as effective as.
Okay, but if those citizens are able to craft some kind of explosives or have rifles, it's going to be a lot easier.
If they craft some explosives, they will be able to damage.
They'll be. Years of struggle by people under occupation because you are just a defeatist who just quits because you think, oh, it can't be done, and you idealize revolutions like the French, where people use their bare hands to take apart a prison. Well, that's not going to
Let
happen.
me interject here. To be fair, Gus was kind of being inconsistent. He's discrediting the possibility of a civil war where civilians have to rebel against their military because, well, the military obviously has stronger weaponry, but he still praises the French Revolution where they tore down a castle with their bare hands. However, I have to give credit to Manuel here. The Vietnamese, the Viet Cong, I mean, these people did not have tanks. These people, I mean, the North Vietnamese did, but the Viet Cong themselves, they were largely independent, and they fought with their bare hands, and they fought underground. They had guerrilla tactics. They fought mostly with their own fundings, and most of them were just the average peasant, and they were able to fight against invading forces with big airplanes that were bombing the shit out of innocent human beings that basically led to everyone hating the United States at the time. So
But there are regional okay, how do I put this? There have been changes in warfare over the years that make certain outcomes less likely than others. And I think to sort of hand wave those away, saying that all you got to do is wanna, is a very American point of view, but it ignores certain realities about the very technologies that in many cases the United States themselves have introduced into war. That means that just because you have rifles doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be able to keep the American government at bay. And I think that's something that's very important. Oh boy. Okay,
But it
go
sends
ahead.
a message.
Okay, but I think you misunderstand the use of tactics. I mean, you can have all the top-line tanks and fighter jets and bombs in the world, but you can't use those to control a population. You can't use those to control, like, a civilian uprising, you know? You can use those to attack a military, but if a bunch of people with guns decide they don't want to be controlled, they can use pretty much any means at their disposal to fight against the occupying force. I mean, the insurgents in Iraq used crude IEDs made out of like ammonium nitrate and nails, and they inflicted a ton of casualties against the American forces.
The insurgents of Iraq. Okay, I'm echoing again. The insurgents in Iraq the insurgents in Iraq came to exist because of de-Baathification, and so suddenly there were a couple of million guys all over the streets in Iraq, with weapons and no job. Okay. Again, specific circumstances have to be taken into account. You're talking about the United States, and you're talking about the United States government with a number. First of all, unlike in Iraq, where they were trying to get out as fast as they possibly could, okay, and they cut a shit ton of corners. They tied the hands of the military there, which is a good chunk of why the insurgents was successful to begin with, okay. That's not going to be a problem in your country.
Well, I mean, not right now, but if the government pushes us enough, then it will be. You're assuming that circumstances are going to be the same as they are right now. But in the case where the civilians have to rise up and overthrow the government, or at the very least defend themselves against tyranny, and the circumstances will be changed.
Well, what would tyranny look like to the United States?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. We can't even imagine it because the population is so well armed that the government is unable to inflict tyranny.
To be fair, Vlad, you define the ability for evil trannies to use the restroom that best suits their gender identity to be a form of tyranny. You even said that.
Christ.
I never said that.
No, you said in a private hangout that people, if the government tries to allow evil trannies to use the restroom that best suits their gender identity, which Donald Trump supports, by the way, on the mere basis, people are going to rebel, and they should overthrow the governments that are behind this sexual degeneracy.
I never said that. I said that people are not going to stand for allowing their children to use the same restroom as a man with a penis. But that doesn't mean that they're going
But that's
to
not the case,
initiate armed rebellion.
That's not the case.
Okay.
Because
Well, Tom? What would make the Americans rise up in armed rebellion?
I could explain that.
Okay,
Sure,
yeah.
America. Go ahead.
Let's hear from America.
Well, in order for something like that to happen, there would need to be martial law declared, a mass confiscation attempt, concentration camps, that sort of thing, or foreign troops.
Okay. In most cases, martial law is usually declared either after a serious disaster, apprehended insurrection, what they call apprehended insurrection, where the government comes to believe for some reason that an insurrection is imminent, or after an insurrection has openly been declared. As far as concentration camps are concerned, wow, you guys already have a prison industrial complex down there that's pretty fucking scary. And I mean, one of these days, I'd love for you guys to talk about your prison industrial complex, because I got a lot to say about private prisons and such.
private prisons are a disaster.
But just sticking to the topic, I mean, do you have any other criteria that would I mean, mass conflict? What?
Hold on. That's a troll. I'm ejecting him.
Oh.
I tried hosting a live stream yesterday, and some random kid who was shirtless was like, "What are we gonna talk about?" And I'm like, "What the fuck, kid? Why are you shirtless, calling on a hangout about politics?"
At least he wasn't beating some bald guy in the face with his dick, going, "Tell me a story, tell me a story."
I can only imagine Catholic priests doing that, though.
No, come on now. Not all Catholics. Come on.
I mean, priests.
I'm very interested. I'm very interested in talking to going back and talking to America. America, the fellow with the snake, not America, the country. Although presumably he is in America.
Yes.
More about. So.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. For some strange reason, I'm not as coherent today as I don't know. Maybe it's just because I woke up from a nap. What else would be the kind of things that would start an insurrection?
Well, I could imagine if the government decided to nationalize possibly a industry that could detrimentally affect the economy, or
such as.
I mean, there's several, but I
what
just
about
can't.
What about the oil industry? What if you guys decided to Venezuela that motherfucker? Huh?
Well,
actually, I have an idea. If the government was in control by someone, let's say like Hillary Clinton, who was unstable and wanted to declare war on other countries for no good reason, like Russia, and wanted to whatever.
We've had more corrupt presidents, though. To be
fair.
Okay,
not even Hillary Clinton. Let's say any president.
Why are you guys laughing?
Any president wanted to declare war.
Like Donald Trump wants to build a wall and try to make the fucking Mexicans pay for it.
Okay, but wait.
Well, to be fair, you're kind of strawman. Tom, I'm one of the greatest studiers. That's not a real word, but I am one of the great person who actually covers the slander of the media against Trump. First of all, that quote about Trump saying that all Mexicans are rapists, that's actually taken out of context. And you see all these news articles that say he says all Mexican immigrants are rapists. He never said that. The full quote basically stated that he was talking about illegal immigrants. And yes, he did say he wants the Mexican government to pay for the wall, but he admits in his books and on his website that until then, we have to have a trade policy that basically incentivizes Mexicans to help contribute to it, and we need the power of the taxpayer to help build this wall. So that's a strawman argument against him on that part.
Wait a minute. I agree with you on that. Well, how is that a strawman argument?
To be plain, I've never said that Donald Trump has a position that Mexicans are racist.
Rapists.
Rapists. Excuse me. I got distracted by Asa J there. Sorry about that. But I mean, I'm. Oh God, I'm echoing so hard, and it's so distracting. Anyways, go ahead, guys.
Okay, earlier we were talking about guilds versus labor unions. What's your opinion on that? What's better?
I'm sorry. What was that first word you used?
Guilds, or not guilds, guild.
Guild. There we
Yes.
go.
What's better?
Guilds are a product of. I mean, guilds can best be thought of as proto unions, but they tend to more be about the ensuring the quality of artists, of tradesmen and artisans, whereas labor unions tend to be a tool for collective bargaining. So, for instance, a baker's guild would be a way by which bakers all across a land could ensure the quality and uniformity of what they bring to the consumer, whereas a labor guild, a labor union, would be about a whole bunch of people standing together and demanding the same wages and working conditions from an employer. So really, you're talking about two different things.
Okay, but like, what do you think is better in terms of economics? Because American.
Well, you're asking. I mean, ideally, you would have both.
Okay.
Right?
I mean, because America's saying like American here likes he doesn't identify, but he agrees with this thing that was started by the Spanish fascists. Very amazing people, by the way. I'm just messing. They had this thing called national syndicalism, and they basically based their economy off having guilds, basically speaking. Do you think that could work?
Well, I mean, I'm not really sure. Based on the descriptions that I've given of what guilds are, I mean, every economy is benefited by organizations that make sure that every trade good or every service brought to consumers is of a uniform quality and composition, and that's what guilds do. That's what guilds do best, right?
All right. So, America, clarify your position.
Well, I take the similar, position to the Spanish, where it's a sort of a pragmatic.
That's good to know, Os. That's good to know.
Where the employer and the the worker kind of come together and discuss things, but it's not strictly for the worker and it's not strictly for the employer.
Well, okay. I've come out of a big labor background, and so I do have a bias in favor of unions. I know that unions can be a pain in the ass if they're allowed to go unchecked, and if they have trouble checking themselves before they wreck themselves. I think governments can be just as fucking bad. I think corporations can be twice as bad. So, but I believe ultimately that when you have a healthy union and an employer who treats with a healthy and intelligent union in a fucking fair way and in good faith, everybody benefits.
Oh yes. I can kind of tell you have a Labor Party background.
Well, not a Labor Party, but I come out of big labor. No, Tom is probably beginning to recognize my political orientation as NDP.
What's NDP?
New Democratic Party.
What are they?
You're
not Trudeauians, are you?
We're to the left of Trudeauians, whatever that is.
God.
Wait, Gus, what do you think of Mulcair?
Oh, I wish to fuck they'd put him on an island with some bottled water and a fucking hooker and just leave the rest of us alone. God, I cannot stand that fucking
what do you think
man.
of Lauren Southern?
Who?
Lauren Southern?
Never heard of him.
It's a girl.
Oh.
She will enlighten your mind.
The only Warren that's come out of your political system that I adore is Elizabeth Warren.
No, I meant Lauren Southern.
Oh, Lauren. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing. I've never heard of her. I've just never heard of her.
She was she used to be a candidate for the Canadian Libertarian Party, but she left. But because she didn't like feminism, and she got a vial of piss poured on her at a protest recently.
Oh, well, that's just fucking wrong. That's just wrong.
Hey, is it okay if I bring my 2 cents into labor unions?
Sure.
Why
Since
not?
you are a Marxist after all, and there were Marxist labor unions in the past, weren't there?
Right, exactly. The thing was, like, I'm trying to address this to you, Nero, because not all labor unions are the same. Like, you're trying to say, like,
There's public labor unions, and the Supreme Court ruled that you could outlaw those.
But, like...
Because if you serve the public, then fuck you up the ass if you don't like the wages your government pays you. That's what the Supreme Court basically said.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though. Like, you're trying to compare apples to oranges when you're trying to compare, like, Catalonia to, like, American...
I didn't do that.
But you're like, oh, look at these labor unions, therefore all labor unions are bad. That's not an argument.
I never said that. I believe labor unions have the right to exist. And I mean, as long as... I believe labor unions have the right to exist, as long as it's private ones. My only problem with them is that some of them do contribute to corruption. And in some cases...
Yes. There are labor unions that really fucking make a fucking mess of it. Your labor unions, your auto workers unions in the 1970s were corrupt as a fucking Roman fucking orgy, man. It was fucking...
Yeah.
It's no wonder.
I'm sorry, but Roman orgies were never corrupt. I'm just kidding.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Nero likes that analogy.
But yeah, like, as I was trying to say...
Why do you think I'm called Nero?
I know.
I had the biggest orgies in the world when I was emperor.
Go ahead.
Actually, Gus, I have a question for you.
Yes, Tom.
You said you support the NDP.
Yes, I do.
Rachel Notley of the Alberta New Democratic Party, when she was elected, she cut funding for the wildfire fighting budget. And
only you can prevent wildfires.
The giant wildfire in northern Alberta right now. So what do you think about that?
She found out the hard way that when you do stupid things come back at you. Listen, just because I'm NDP, I don't take the attitude my party right or wrong. I go into this with my eyes open. And frankly, the NDP has been as stupid as anybody else in Canadian politics for as long as they've been around. Trust me. It hasn't always been about the days of wine and roses with Jack Layton, believe me.
Yeah, I actually like Jack Layton, even though
yes, a lot of people liked fucking Jack Layton. I wasn't really crazy about him, but then again, I mean, he was better than fucking Thomas Mulcair. At least he could close the fucking deal.
Okay, Oz, give your opinion on the labor unions, and then I'm going to let the independent workman finish his point.
All I know is that the union for teachers and teacher aides managed to get me a wage increase from the government, even though I'm not a teacher or a teacher aide.
Like grade A under A?
Like
grade A under A? You're not a teacher.
No, I'm an IT tech that works for the Queensland Department of Education.
I think you just doxed yourself, but whatever.
Dude, there are people out there claiming that I've raped some people out there. It's
I don't think you give a shit by now. Feminists are going to make false rape accusations against you over the internet.
That's right.
Can't touch me.
Well, I said, touch your balls.
Yeah, I can touch my balls if I want.
Not without paying him a fair wage first. You wanna rub these two hangers here? It's gonna cost you at least a bobby.
Makes me think of somebody who cannot be named.
Does his name start with a D? And ends with an O1?
Yeah.
Is a demographic Satanist a 1?
Yes. That's or National
Socialist 01.
He's the counterpart of National Socialist 01.
Oh, it sounds like a fucking pack of winners to me.
Yeah. Okay, independent workman. Finish your point about labor unions.
Okay. Well, kind of like with Gus, but my father is a union steward for the National Association for Letter Carriers. So throughout my whole life, right now, I've experienced with labor unions. I've been to Labor Day parades, and I've been to stuff where I actually saw Bernie Sanders himself. So the thing is with American labor as a whole, it has a rich past. It has a rich history in involving America, and I think people forget that what the labor union has done.
Yes.
For wages, for rights.
You're here.
Yeah, it's it's.
You know what? You know what's funny, Independent? You say that your father was a shop steward for the letter carriers in, I guess, in the United States.
Yeah.
My dad actually, my dad belonged to the Canadian Union of Postal Workers, the CUP W, which is the rough analog of your union down there. So, for 27 years, my dad was part of that union. He was even shop steward for a little while. So that's pretty wicked.
Yeah, pretty wicked, dude.
Pretty wicked. I came out of the steel workers myself. Like I was USWA, had a local 5297 for a while. And I tell you,
occupation?
Well, currently I'm between jobs, but I used to be part of the USWA's push into private security in Canada. So they were trying to sign up private security companies in Canada, and I was part of the initial push for that. And so I got to negotiate a collective agreement or two. And let me tell you, fellas, it's fucking something, man. When you're sitting on the other side of a table with a fucking corporate CEO, munching on donuts, going, so let's look at fucking sick days, boys. It's really quite something.
Oh, so Gus, you're a security guard?
I was, yes.
Yeah. Is it cool being a security guard?
No, it's not. It's really not cool.
Is it like being a cop, man?
It's not like it is in the States, where some security guards are allowed to have guns and tasers and badges and no. Up here in Canada, you're not even allowed to have a stick. You're not allowed to have handcuffs. You're not allowed to have fuck all.
Then what's the point?
Because you're there to do something called detect and deter. You're basically there as a pair of eyes and as a deterrent to people breaking in, because a lot of people won't break into a place if there's a guard there. They'll figure, fuck it, they could see me, whatever. And the other thing too is a lot of insurance companies won't insure you unless you have a guard watching over the place at night.
Wait, so you were like Paul Blart, man.
I didn't even have the fucking segue.
Oh man,
and I think didn't Paul Blart have like a stick or something like?
Yeah. I think he had like a know.
It's illegal in Canada for private security guards or even private investigators to have any sort of badge device. You're not allowed to have you can have a cloth, you can have like a cloth patch to signify your corporation and perhaps even your rank. And you're allowed to wear military-style collar pins to signify because I was a captain for a while. You're allowed to wear that. But that's it. Like, don't you fucking dare wear a badge, and you sure as hell don't get to wear a badge with a crown or a maple leaf or any shit like that, because they'll throw you in the fucking hoosgow.
Gus, I'm gonna go back to not an earlier argument, but this has been a debate between me and other people, especially on the far right. What is your personal sentiment in regards to taxing places of worship that generate income, such as churches and mosques? Do you think that they're hoarding income and we should tax them, or at least their income and their real estate?
Yeah, I think everybody should pay taxes unless they are poor.
Even non-profit organizations, because churches are technically non-profit organizations.
Yeah, why shouldn't they be? Why shouldn't they pay taxes?
Well,
many of them are political. I mean, see the bargain that was the sort of unspoken bargain that was struck in North America between the clergy in general and the government was that the clergy would remain apolitical and the government wouldn't tax them. Well, the clergy is no longer apolitical, so as far as I'm concerned, the government should fucking tax that ass. Tax that ass. What you got? You got fucking what are you? Your Creflo fucking dollar? Making fucking
maybe Creflo dollar
hand over fist, fucking tax that ass, fucking.
Creflo dollar is not even
strip clubs don't seek to maximize.
They still should not.
Actually, some do.
That's a violation of First Amendment freedom of religion.
No, it's not, because if you're trying to, why should your God be involved in the political process when, for one, there's no evidence for a God. There's no evidence for a God, and you're trying to get a deity that has no proof of existing into the realm of objective politics. That should be...
Well, it's part of national culture.
Okay, but taxes... Okay, churches are not the only institutions. No,
mosques,
they're not the only non-profit institutions, though.
Mosques, synagogues, charities, all these people should pay at least some tax rate.
Okay, but you realize that they're not they're not like normal businesses that try to maximize their profit and maintain like economic efficiency.
But again, you're
So
making
if
a
you
non
tax them,
sequitur.
they won't be able to. They'll pretty much be like they'll have to cease operations because
But
they won't be
that's a
able-
non sequitur. That's a non sequitur because
So you think
The
this
other
is
thing, the other thing to keep in mind. Hang on a second here, just for 1 sec, please. The
Okay.
other thing to keep in mind, Tom, is that taxation has to be based off of ability to pay. Okay, you don't go into a let's say there's a tiny little church, and they don't even make the same amount of money as a poor person would make. You obviously don't tax them at all, because they don't have any money to tax. But you get into like Robert Schuller's fucking Crystal Cathedral, or Creflo Dollar, or fucking Peter Popoff, or Jim Baker, and fucking tax that shit. Tax them fuckers.
I mean,
Run their
I mean,
fucking
Creflo
nuts
Dollar
out.
is an
part
example.
of, part of the
Tom,
requirements for being part of the requirements for being a nonprofit organization is that any revenue that you receive, either by donations or otherwise, you have to put back into your organization. So
Yeah, Creflo really looks like
so these people like Peter Popoff and all these other fucking scam artists, and yeah, I agree, we should tax them. But for regular churches, like 99% of congregations who just pass by on like the bare minimum of donations from their congregation, like we shouldn't tax them.
Tom, wait, guys, shut up for a second. What was his name again? Robert Koffler? Is that how you pronounce his name?
Peter Popoff?
The guy you're talking about, that fraud.
Peter. There's Peter Popoff. He's a fraud.
Okay.
Creflo Dollar. He's a motherfucker.
Creflo Dollar. That's who I was referring to.
Yeah, fuck those guys. I'm not talking
Here's the thing. Tom, shut the fuck up for a second. Okay, Tom. Oh, not Tom. The guy we're talking about. Here's the thing. You can't pick and choose. You can't. Okay, if you're not talking, please mute yourself. You can't pick and choose who you're going to tax. If you're going to tax a church, you're going to have to tax any one of them that generates a significant amount of income, even if they're not frauds. You can't pick and choose, okay, that guy's a fraud even though he's non-profit. You can't say, oh, you can't tax churches because they're non-profit, because if, as you say, you want to tax non-profit organizations, you just implied that at least, you want to tax non-profit organizations that commit fraud. So you're committing a double standard.
Yeah, but the difference between a church that racks in a substantial amount of donations from their congregation and somebody like Creflo Dollar or Peter Popoff is that those the legitimate churches, they take the money that they receive and they put it back into the maintenance of their churches. They don't.
All
they
pastors
don't
do that, you idiot.
What?
All pastors. Okay, see, here's the thing. Unless you're like a very small church or you have a church in your own house or something, I know people who do that because I don't hate Christians. I am friends with a lot of Christians. I just happen to find their religious beliefs stupid. But I'm not going to judge people based on their religion. However, I know, Gus, you should invite me on one of your atheist shows one day because I will contribute a lot.
I know. I know
the
you will.
Here's the thing, Tom.
Door tippers.
Here's the thing, Tom. If you have a big church, like there's a church that I go to because my parents are Christian, and they say, okay, son, you better go to church with us because we want you to be a good Christian man when you grow up. Well, here's the thing. We donate to this church, and it's a big church. And the reason why they have a big church is because they need the money from us to fund the supplies. The money is distributed. That's why it's called an income. What do you think income is? It's financial gain, and churches do in fact get financial gain. And again, I'm not saying it's just churches that should be taxed. I say mosques should be taxed, synagogues should be taxed, Hindu temples should be taxed, Buddhist temples should be taxed. They should all be taxed if they generate income.
If we tax synagogues, we could feed the whole fucking world.
Yeah, that's true.
Jesus.
With bread and wine.
There we go. There it is.
Hey,
right there.
Should we also tax charities too?
Why not?
Okay, so then you're pretty much making most charities cease to exist because they're
Actually, Tom, I think it should all be based on ability to pay. I don't think you make a broad law that says if you are a charity you must pay, X amount always. You tax progressively based on ability to pay.
So you oppose a flat tax?
No, oh fuck! I hate flat tax. A flat tax is an imbecilic way to fucking tax.
Okay, I actually have to agree with Gus on this one.
Okay, I actually
I mean,
agree. I'm on the fence
I
about
mean,
it.
if you've got a tiny little church that they pass the hat around and they make maybe $150 a week, fuck it, they're not worth it. You know,
Okay,
like
But these
and
mega
not.
churches and
Well,
these mega synagogues.
But like the thing is, Nero, in Canada, I don't know of any mega churches or mega synagogues.
Yeah, I don't
Like,
think there
most
are
of the
any.
churches in my community, they're barely able to stay afloat as
But
it
what about the
is. Like,
Catholic
Yeah.
Church? What about the Catholic Church? Because here's the thing about the
Oh,
Catholic Church.
tax the Catholic Church like a fucking
Dude,
milking cow,
here's the
man.
thing.
Twice a
The
fucking
Catholic
day.
Church.
Squirt,
the Catholic,
squirt,
hold on,
squirt.
guys. The Catholic Church is under the control of the Vatican, and the Vatican have a significant influence over public policies all across the world. They control and dominate over 2 billion people, as they say. I recommend you watch Christopher Hitchens and Stephen Fry absolutely rape the two Catholic apologists.
Christian Hitchens is not really a source on anything.
Yeah, even though but then again, he was a Trotskyist, so of course you're going to say that. But
Oh,
I
I love me a good Trotskyist.
He's the worst commie in my opinion.
I think he's better than Stalin.
No. Trotsky was the fucking party animal of the fucking Troika back then, man. He was like.
I love your sarcasm, Gus. You have a good sense of humor.
Stalin was all like, "We must control the people," and fucking Trotsky was like, "What? Give them parties. They will love us." I'm telling you, man. Trotsky was where it was at. If you imagine what communism's, what the face that communism would have presented the world with if Trotsky had been in charge instead of Stalin. Think about that for a minute.
Oh, Gus, wait a minute. Oz has something to say. Oz,
Okay,
what
so
do you have to say?
There's something interesting about taxing churches is that I think you definitely need a progressive tax on them because they can get to the point, right, where in Australia we have a food company called Sanitarium, right, and they're owned by
delightful.
one of the they're owned by one of the churches, so you know they're all fun. But it's a big brand. It competes with other brands, and they're not taxed at all because they're a church.
Yeah.
And so,
by the way, let me go back to why I believe we should tax the Catholic Church. The reason why is because again they have the Vatican, which controls the Catholic Church. The Vatican has a significant impact on political institutions all across the world. These people tend to the Pope himself is a political figure. He's basically the head of state in what we would call the Vatican, that city-state. That city-state, which controls the Catholic Church, again, has a significant impact over the globe. So these people are directly involved in the political system. So that alone should result in them paying a tax rate. And George Carlin brought up this good point. The real estate that belongs to the Catholic Church all across the globe could be enough to actually crush the national debt.
George Carlin's a comedian, Nero.
So,
okay, but Nero, I think that most Catholics would agree with you. Like a lot of the Catholics of the Dominican and Franciscan sects, they were founded on poverty and living a life of like bare minimum.
In some cases, Catholic dioceses have become so fucking opulent that Pope Benedict himself went on a whirlwind tour of fucking shit-kicking fucking bishops. That particularly there was a couple of bishops in South America and a few others that he sort of went, so how come the toilet paper is made of gold and your people are starving? Oh, holy fuck! That's it, you're fucking fired. Like that's, I mean, he literally went and fucking heavily disciplined dioceses that were wealthy in the face of poverty. So the Catholic Church is beginning to smarten up, or at least Pope Benedict is. But in the meantime, milk the shit out of them. Tax the fuckers.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, back on.
Wait a minute, Gus. Would you support taxing mosques?
If the mosques have the money, if the mosques exist in I mean, well, why should they be exempt? Again, be progressive, be merciful to people who can't pay, but for the fucking people that are making making fat stacks, racks, and fucking whatever else they're being called these days, pay, render unto Caesar.
I mean, the thing is, taxing religious places would not be unconstitutional. Like, people say it's a violation of separation of church and state, but if you really think about it, it would only be a violation of our Constitution according to the Supreme Court. I forgot which case I'm referring to, but if you were to tax indiscriminately based on that notion, you would not be considered favoring another religion over another. So that's a false criticism of taxing churches, because if you were to tax any place of worship that has enough money to be taxed, as you say before, then you're saying, okay, if you are a Hindu temple, then you need to pay X amount of income because you are able to pay. So, again, I think that's a poor criticism that America made and he should never make again. Secondly, what was I going to say? Damn it. Shit. My ADD just kicked in. Keep going.
My view is that you should never attack the home religion.
What's the home religion?
Christianity.
I think Tom is very excited to tax the new mosques in Canada.
Yeah, well, I believe so.
Taxation isn't an attack. I mean, taxation is just making sure that everybody that benefits from the benefits of a society contribute to maintaining those benefits.
It's called wealth redistribution, and wealth redistribution actually does work well even in countries with higher rates of economic freedom. Like, you have these libertarians who are like, hey, look at Denmark, look at Norway, look at Sweden. These countries, they have no minimum wage and they have free market policies. This is proof that libertarianism can work, but they neglect to mention that they have high wealth redistribution even if they don't have a minimum wage, and the amount of money they make off the amount of economic freedom they have goes towards a state-run insurance policy. It goes towards many things that are meant to, how would you say, benefit the majority overall. So I don't know why libertarians like to...
That's the same thing with my guild idea over trade unions. Basically, the vertical trade union system, or the vertical guild, is that it's a guild that unites employers and employees, and the state solves their problems for them.
Okay, but like, then again, with what I was about to say...
But I disagree with redistribution of wealth personally, but...
but how are you going to do that? You personally told me that you support some public sector services, and the only way you can have some services being provided by the public sector in our current state of the economy is that if you have redistribution of wealth, these services can't be funded without anything. Even countries with universal health care that has demonstrated that you ought to have, I support a market-based universal health care system like Donald Trump does.
Yeah, me too.
I believe everyone should have Medicaid and Medicare. I'm not for... Oh, nice job, Tom. I'll say what he just wrote in a second. But yeah, God damn it. What was I saying? Could someone bring me up to speed?
Poor Nero. You sound like I feel.
Okay. What was I saying?
Taxation of the...
Yeah. You have to have wealth redistribution to fund these public services, and these countries with high economic freedom, like Hong Kong and Singapore, they have a strong public sector. You need a strong public sector for a decent society. That's just a fact.
That's true. It's true. Absolutely.
And if you want proof, look at Kenya and Uganda, who are actually countries with a very, very low, a very insignificant public sector, and they are shit. Oh, and they're Christian countries. So that means that, yes, Tom, we should ban immigration. You say you should ban immigration based on region, and I agree, but you have to acknowledge that even Christian immigration can be a problem, because look at Uganda. In the interview with Stephen Fry, the Minister of Ethics in Uganda said that consensual sex between two male adults is worse than raping a 9-year-old girl. Now, that is fucked up, and most people in Uganda agree with him, and if you're a gay man and you think mass immigration from countries like Uganda is good for you, then I just have to say it. You are a retard.
Well, I said that we should restrict immigration based on ethnicity, not on religion.
Why should we restrict immigration based on ethnicity?
Well, I mean, that's how it
I
was
say
prior to
she-
the 1967 Immigration Act. Like, you have to realize that Canada and the United States were founded upon European values, and if we allow
But European
Canada and the
values aren't
United States to be
objective.
overrun by non-Europeans, these countries will cease to convey the values that they were founded upon.
What values
Yeah,
are you
Gus,
talking about?
Gus, before we continue, Tom believes in white genocide, so just to clarify what he means.
You mean that he believes that white people are being wiped out?
Yeah.
So
We're
what?
being echoed. Mute your microphones, everyone, if you're not talking.
So what?
Well, I mean, I'm a white person. I look out from the interests of my own people, and I don't want to live in a country that's like 20% white.
Why?
Because, well, I mean, if you look at the Putnam studies and various other studies that have been conducted about diversity and the effects that it has on people, they demonstrate that in a diverse culture, people are less likely to form bonds with their neighbors. People are less
I
likely
have to disagree. I have to
contribute to
disagree.
charities. They're likely to withdraw
But
into
Vlad, I
their
have
own
to disagree
self.
with you respectively, and let me explain why. The reason why I disagree is that in some cases, some cultures can mix. So, for example, Denmark and French culture, those two cultures, they
They're
could
similar.
mix together very well without any issues. How about Mexican culture and Southern culture? Sure, there might be some problems down the road, but they could theoretically mix very well. But it's just some cultures like Sharia law. Sharia law is incompatible with secular values that are guaranteed in European nations.
As you said, I think that yeah, you're right. But like certain cultures are more alike than others. For example, yeah, as you said, French and Danish cultures are very similar. But you know, our cultures would not be compatible with cultures of sub-Saharan Africa or the Middle East, or
By the way,
South America.
Gus, you once asked me a question in I'm echoing through someone.
I think it's me. I'll mute myself.
Yeah, I mean, Gus, you asked me once about like when I said that we should ban immigration from high-risk countries, and you're asking me a source about that. And I put it in the chat if you can see it. This is the list that Rand Paul used when making his proposal to temporarily ban immigration from high-risk countries. This list was composed by the university, and it's determined by countries that are subject of travel warnings by the U.S. Department of State. Those are identified as high risk by government sources such as the Department of Treasury, Office of Foreign Assets Control, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the Office of the Director National Intelligence, and many other sources. And here's some countries that you could probably agree immigration from could be very harmful: Afghanistan, Algeria, Chad, Egypt, El Salvador, Haiti, Iraq, Kenya, Syria, Libya, Nigeria, Pakistan, the Philippines, Somalia, Uganda, Ukraine, Yemen. Wouldn't you agree that we
There's
should...
probably a reason the FBI doesn't look down upon El Salvador a lot. It's not because they're high risk. Probably has something to do with foreign policy.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I mean, you can check the source yourself.
I'd be interested in knowing why, for each particular country, they are considered a high risk. I mean, during
look at Somalia.
during the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan, the United States was and Canada were perfectly willing to take Afghani civilians. I'm not sure why that's changed now. Algeria, I'm not sure what the problem is there. I know that Algeria has traditionally resisted French occupation, but I mean that's kind of in the past. I know nothing about Burundi or Cameroon or the Central African Republic or Chad. The People's Republic of China, I don't know what the problem is there. Christ, I mean we don't want their people. We don't want their people, but we're happy to sell just about everything we can to them and buy just about everything we can from them.
What about Uganda?
Afghanistan is on the high risk.
What about Uganda? That country.
What did that other guy say? What?
Well, Afghanistan has a lot of radical type beliefs being spread around there, and
but they're not gonna come over. I mean, no. Listen, the reason that the Wahhabists are over there is because they're they're funneling people, mostly to keep control of Afghanistan, but they're also sort of funneling people in back and forth into and out of Pakistan for to fight against Indians. So, I mean, what the kind of immigrants that remember, you're getting these immigrants want to leave these fucking countries, okay? So, I mean, that's something to keep in mind when you're thinking about this. But I mean, Cuba. Listen, the only reason that Cuba is considered a risky immigrant is because that shit that fucking Castro pulled during the Mariela boat lift. Castro pulled a big fucking trick on the United States, because the United States urged Castro to let anybody go who wanted to go. So we fucking emptied the prisons and stuck them on boats, mixed them in with quote-unquote legitimate refugees, and sent them all over. And they caused a shit ton of trouble for fucking Miami for a while. And the United States has never forgiven them for that.
Yeah, I mean, there was a whole bunch of crime because of the so-called Cuban refugees. I mean, this was depicted in Grand Theft Auto Vice City, if you ever played that game. That actually,
in the movie Scarface, too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And why is Haiti a problem? What the hell did the Haitians ever do?
Actually, Gus, have you ever heard of the scientist J. Philip Rushton?
Yes.
Well, wait. What do you think of him?
I've heard the name.
Well, yeah, he was a Canadian scientist who made a ton of research into the connection between ethnicity and IQ. And some of his studies, he determined.
This is irrelevant.
Just him. It was many other scientists at the same time, like the authors.
Yeah,
of
around what time? Around what time are we talking about?
The 2000s. He died very recently. But anyway, him and many other scientists like.
We'll talk about race and IQ in another.
Yeah, that's
time.
a different subject. But my view is
why is Hong Kong considered an at-risk country?
Look at their crime rates and their poverty levels.
Big deal. People are coming here to get away from that.
Okay, but what about Uganda? What about Uganda? We already know Uganda's a hell.
Wait a minute. I was getting to a point. I was saying that because these different ethnicities have much lower IQ, then if we flood them into our countries and we let them become a dominant demographic within our countries, it will lower the average IQ.
Tom, you oppose eugenics, but yet what you're saying is we could use what you're saying to improve the DNA of our population through selective breeding being applied to humans. I mean, you're making my personal belief that the state should control human breeding. How would you say? It's very intriguing how you're backing up what I support, even though I don't believe it's race-based. I believe it depends on who is breeding, because stupidity is an epidemic. You have stupid people breeding willy-nilly, which is why I personally believe you should have a license to breed. That's just me. Like Plato's system, where you would have to have they would quantify your qualities like IQ, athletic predispositions, which all of these are hereditary to some degree or another. And if people who typically have favorable traits, they'll be allowed to procreate with other people.
Why is Israel?
Okay, but there is a definitive correlation between ethnicity and IQ.
All right,
I'm not in favor of like going around and sterilizing people or
no. I mean,
breed with other people.
Well,
I still think that the government has a responsibility to maintain a certain demographic composition within our country.
But wait a minute, shouldn't we sterilize people with incurable hereditary diseases like people with HIV/AIDS?
No.
Why not?
Because people with HIV and AIDS it has nothing to do with IQ.
No, because again.
Well, if they got their ass AIDS, how smart can they be?
I mean, but I'm talking about traits overall, not just IQ. But
I mean, you think I should really let Tom say his point, because I think Gus is being very supercilious towards Tom and just dismissing him as being a really snarky liberal douche. I think you should listen to him.
Manuel, you're not one to talk in some cases. I mean, you're cool and all, but you've been snarky as well.
I'm trying to figure out why Israel I'm trying to figure out why Mexico is on this list. I'm trying to figure out why Russia's on this list. I'm trying to figure out why. I mean, in Canada, we've had significant immigration from Somalia, and there's never been a problem. By the way, Uganda isn't actually on this list, Nero.
Why not? I mean, that's just common sense that Uganda, being the hellhole that it is,
They're not here, but the Ukraine is though.
But Canada does
Uganda
have
isn't.
fairly strict immigration policies, even though they are quite liberal.
yeah, I mean, Japan is, in some cases, they are liberal too, and they want to preserve their ethnic group.
Okay, but the reason why Canada has not had a problem with Somalians is because they've always been a tiny minority within our country. But look to a city like Dearborn, Michigan, or Minneapolis, Minnesota, where you have a giant demographic of Somalians who are just fucking up everything. Not only are they bringing in diseases, but they are bringing in crime and just general degeneracy, and they're lowering the average IQ of these places and making them intolerable for like Western-minded people to live in. Like, I don't want that. And if we continue bringing in these people into our countries, then we are going to become what Dearborn, Michigan is.
There'll be blood in the streets, rivers of blood.
Have you ever been to Brampton, Ontario, Gus?
They call it Little Mogadishu. It's so bad.
Have you ever been to Brampton, Ontario, Gus?
No, I've never been to Brampton, Ontario.
Go to Brampton, Ontario sometime, and you'll see what I'm talking about, okay?
So,
well, okay.
Listen.
Okay, you live in Ottawa, Ontario, okay? I've been to Ottawa many times. It's a very, very white city. Okay?
Oh, it is, huh?
It is. I've been there many times. At least in the downtown area, it is.
So what about Toronto?
Toronto's a shithole. I wouldn't want to live in Toronto.
Toronto's not a shithole. What do you want about it?
It is a shithole.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
I wouldn't want to live there myself, but that's just because the prices are too high. But Toronto's not a shithole.
Yeah,
well, there are certain parts that are nice, don't get me wrong, but if you walk around downtown for long enough, it's basically a third world country. It's not
a third world country. What are you talking about?
Guys,
it's a third. No, it's like most third world cities, like let's say Sao Paulo or Mexico City. Most of these places are dominated by a rich white elite who rule over a giant non-white underclass, and that's exactly what Toronto is becoming. Toronto is 48% white right now. Okay.
Wait a minute.
Take a stroll through downtown Toronto, through Bay Street or Islington, and you'll see what this city has become. It's a shithole. Okay. If you've ever been there, you can attest to that.
Give your input. Give your input very quickly.
That's strange.
Okay. As you know, Australia has a giant moat around it. Which makes immigration quite difficult. So
and up until the late 1960s, you guys had a color bar on your immigration as well.
Yeah, I know, but well, let's not talk about that. We essentially let people based in on the skill level and the ability to actually provide something for Australia. So essentially, if you can prove that when you come over here you can get a job, we generally let you in, right? Unless if you're a refugee, you've got to prove that you're a refugee, of course. This actually helps greatly because we have a limited amount of immigration, right? Integration isn't a problem because as soon as you come over here, you're literally surrounded by other Australians, right? That you don't really have much of a chance to go to special communities. Even places like we have like Little China is like majority white people, right, and a minority of Asians. As soon as you turn up here, your neighbours are right. You know, as soon as you talk to them, you've just been integrated into Australian culture. We don't have little Mogadishus. We don't have tiny little sectors of area, and that's all because we base immigration on how can you give back to the society.
Oh, Michael Savage said that in his book. I like that idea, actually.
Mm.
And it's got nothing to do with like what skin color you are.
Yeah,
because
it's on what you can do, like what skills you have.
Like I know a guy from Sudan. I work with him. He's a teacher. He teaches French, and he's a great guy. I mean, he integrated perfectly. I mean, so
I'm a little more restrictive than just skills, though. I want to even bring IQ and physical capacity and things like that.
Well, you know, on that note, if you just bring in people with skills, right, you sort of giving like a litmus test for IQ. Like, if people have got the IQ, have got the talent to get these skills and to be able to return to, give back to society, right? You're essentially just weeding out the people who can't.
I also want to promote people from Europe to come, specifically.
Okay, let's move on because this is kind of getting too heated. Okay, so no offense, I actually.
No, seriously, you should really let these guys debate. Like, I really want to see if Gus has an answer besides being a smug fuck to Tom.
Okay, but what's your opinion on what Tom is saying?
I don't have an opinion. I'm just observing an unfair debate.
Okay.
An unfair debate. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Here's the thing. Canada's the new people who come to Canada come here under 3 criteria. Okay. The first is immigration. The second is refugees, and I think people need to keep those 2 groups separate. Okay, because they're allowed into the country on 2 entirely different sets of criterion. The third is what's known as it used to be called compassionate or the family reuniting program, I think it's called. So, for instance, if Buddy comes over from Upper Umigumigumgum land and he's been working here for a while, he can reunite. He can be reunited through the immigration system with most members of his immediate family. Okay, so you're talking about wife, children, immediate grandparents, not aunts or uncles or anything, but immediate grandparents. All right. Now, there's people who criticize that program, but I believe that program is useful. I believe that it does an awful lot of good. And as a Canadian, I think both having a mix of cultures in this country and a government-sanctioned multicultural policy has made our country stronger, not weaker.
How does it make our country stronger, besides bringing in different kinds of cuisine into our country? Like, how does it improve your life, Gus?
You bring in different people, you bring in different ideas, you bring in multicultural. Whoa! You bring in
different ideas, like
you bring
homosexuals and deflower virgins with razor blades. Like, what kinds of ideas do you think we're enriching our country with by importing all these third world people?
And another thing, Gus, I need to ask you: bringing in a bunch of refugees from a country unvetted is not a smart idea.
Really? Because we had a whole bunch of Lebanese people move into Ontario, particularly Ottawa and Toronto. They came straight from the fucking Lebanese Civil War.
Yeah, but that's the Lebanese Christians are very civilized.
Well,
we
didn't just bring in Lebanese Christians. We brought in Lebanese Christians, Lebanese Muslims, Lebanese Druze. We brought in.
Lebanese are very westernized.
Oh yeah, they were so fucking westernized that they decided to have a fucking civil war at the drop of a hat. That's how westernized they were.
They had a civil war largely because it was instigated by foreign influences.
You mean like the Palestinians?
Yes, the Palestinians and the Communist Party in Lebanon, the various leftist factions.
Manuel, what's your thoughts on that attack? And Independent Workman, what's your thoughts on that attack?
Let's not change the subject. That is irrelevant to the debate.
Well, we brought the Lebanese. We brought, when there was a war between Somalia and Eritrea, we brought people from both of those countries into our land. I mean, I don't listen. Once upon a time, there was a First Nation in North America. Okay, then along came the Second Nation. The Europeans took a look around and said, "We like what you guys have. We're going to take it." Now, the Third Nation is coming in, which is made up of even more nations than the Second Nation was. They're basically not doing the same thing that we did to the First Nation. What they're basically doing is we're just going to sit here. By and large, we're going to obey your rules, but we're essentially just going to have more kids than you, and you white people are eventually going to become a minority in what was once a land where you were a majority. I don't see a problem with that. Yeah, what I call that is history.
Wait a minute, Gus. You can't compare the European colonization of North America to the willingly flood of third world countries into North America right now. Because,
why not?
First of all, there are many reasons, but first of all, the First Nations peoples, they were not unified. They were a bunch of warring tribes who had no conception of land ownership. They were constantly at war with each other. And many of the early Canadian settlers, like Samuel de Champlain, wrote that these people were savages. They tortured their prisoners of war. They singed their genitals off. They tortured them. They they pulled their fingernails out. These early.
You've obviously never read it. You've obviously never read a contemporary accounts of an interrogation or an inquisition by the Catholic Church.
Okay,
around
well,
the same
that's
time.
different. That's a completely.
Oh,
different
it's different when civilized people do it. Okay, I get it.
Well, it's a completely different issue. But the First Nations people, they did not invent the wheel. They did not invent civilized agriculture. It took the European settlers to raise their standards of living. And
Raise their standards of living by pushing them off their land and wiping them out?
wait a minute, it was smallpox and disease that mostly wiped
where
out
do
the
they
Native
get the
Americans. smallpox and disease from? And by the way, don't believe the people who told you that it was mostly disease that wiped out the red man. Don't believe that for a minute. Okay, well there were many things, but it was mostly disease like
No,
smallpox,
actually it
because
wasn't.
the Native Americans did not have a natural immunity to it.
Yeah, you're right about that part, but it was not mostly disease that drove them out.
Yes,
especially
it was.
especially not in the United States, where a successive series of Indian wars conducted before and after the American Civil War drove these Indians further and further west until they were pincered between the western colonies of the United States.
Don't paint the Native Americans as like this helpless group that was exterminated.
They weren't helpless. They were helpless.
Look into King Philip's War. Look into the Plago War. What happened
That's
to
a generalization
what happened to the very first lost tribe of Virginia?
Nobody knows what happened to the lost tribe in
They
Rhode
were
Island.
killed by Native Americans. Is what
We have
happened.
no proof of that. We have no proof of that.
No, they were all scalped
We
by Native
have no
Americans.
proof of that whatsoever.
Tom, were the Cherokees uncivilized in your opinion?
Were the Cherokees civilized? They were civilized after the Europeans gave them an alphabet and told them how to ride
Well,
horses.
here's the thing. What you consider to be morally right about the Native Americans is all based on your personal subjective viewpoints on the world.
They were a completely mystical people.
Oh
They
my
were
God,
not
mystical!
civilized.
That's evil.
Also, have you not been taught about the Algonquin Confederation?
I know about the Algonquin Confederation.
The Algonquin Confederation that had
the
the Algonquin Confederation, which included an enormous group of individuals per capita at the time, who had a cohesive set of laws, who had a cohesive system for adjudicating disputes that did not involve war. As a matter of fact, the founding fathers of the United States had emissaries to the Algonquin Confederation who were there tasked to watch what they were doing, because they were hoping to incorporate certain methods of their government into the Constitution.
But that's precisely my point, is that the Native Americans were not a unified group of people. When the Europeans settled here, they allied with many Native American tribes.
The
and they
Americans
fought
were a
against them.
unified group of people. The Canadians were a unified group of people. What are you talking about?
Well, they were more or less unified. Well, when the French were here for the first 200 years of our history, they were a unified group of people. And essentially, they were only split when the British invaded. But under Guy Charlton's reign, under Guy Charlton's governorship of New Quebec, they were pretty much unified because he granted them many rights.
How many people lived in Great. How many people lived in New Quebec at the time?
Hundreds, probably millions.
No, not millions.
Well, probably
Not
hundreds of
millions.
thousands.
An
Hundreds of
awful lot
thousands.
fucking less than the Aboriginal peoples are in the rest of the country.
Well,
An
Gus,
awful lot
you're
less.
forgetting the fact that the red man broke as many treaties as the white man did.
I'll accept your proof on that.
Well, they did.
I'll accept
Actually,
your proof.
I have two observations to make. Why'd you boot him, Nero?
You didn't boot him. You just muted him.
Oh, I thought I said you booted him. First off, I live pretty much on a reservation, and Indians, they pretty much, anybody who lives with them knows that they don't buy your, bleeding heart liberal narrative history. I mean, they killed more buffalo than any white man ever could. They burned down more forests, destroyed more ecosystems. It was it's ridiculous. The narrative you have is so funny.
Okay. Well, I don't know which reservation you live near, but I don't know which tribe you're talking about. and I can't speak to your experience. But what I will tell you is that what I will tell you is that the First Nations people that I've come into contact with, and there are numerous, were not the ones who hunted the buffalo into extinction. They did not set fires to the. They did not set. Okay, well, one of us can talk. I can let you talk, and then you can let me talk, or we can talk over top of each other until Nero separates us. You decide which one.
Yeah, Manuel, if he's talking, shut your pie hole or I'll kick you out. Same with you, Gus. If he's talking and you're interrupting him, I'm going to kick you out too. So who's first?
I'll let Manuel respond.
Well, I just think it's funny that you uphold this weird mysticization and fetishization and heroization, I don't know if that's a word, of Indians when they were savages. I mean, nobody denies that. They were fucking savages. No serious, historically honest person denies that fact. And secondly, I just think that this call is it reminds me of Thanksgiving dinner. Tom is everyone's racist grandpa, and Gus is the oldest liberal daughter who comes back from UC Berkeley and makes a big shit of it.
Hey, Manuel, what am I?
It sounds like an American Thanksgiving dinner, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know anything.
Especially in the 1960s.
I don't know anything about that, but in response to what Manuel said, the fact that these people didn't have a comparable level of technology and they didn't solve their problems the way the Europeans did. I mean, Europeans have an interesting concept of savagery. They point to the red man and they say, "Oh, those people are savages." And yet many of the fucking practices that they excoriated in the red man were practices that back in fucking Europe were also being done. They simply dressed them up better than the fucking Indians did.
Manuel says he's trying to hold in his laugh.
That doesn't negate the fact they happened or make them any less savage or bad.
Well, no, it just means that the fucking Europeans were hypocrites, basically. So they showed up here. So they showed up here and they said, okay, you guys have land. We kind of need that, so we'll take it. And if you don't like it, we'll make war on you. I mean, to deny that was done. I mean, to me, to deny that was done is historical revision.
What's your input on this?
I want to point out that when the Islamic Caliphate, I think, I'm not going to say the year because it's ancient time, when they were invading Spain, they essentially built 2 universities. Okay. Now, at this point in time, there were 2 universities in Spain that were under control of the Islamic Caliphate, while the rest of Europe had none, and almost everyone couldn't read. So, if we were to go back at that time, there would be people saying, "Stop the immigration of white Europeans into the Middle East and into Africa because of their low IQ and they're dumb."
I mean, I don't agree. First of all, I don't agree with the concept of race-based IQ. I think IQ testing was created to test people's intelligence under certain conditions that may or may not be consistent around the world.
But to be fair, even though I agree, IQ does have some flaws in its measurements. Okay. There are, obviously, it's axiomatic that there are flaws when measuring IQ, or intelligence quotient, which, contrary to popular belief, an IQ isn't the intelligence you have. IQ is a measurement of the amount of intelligence you can possess within a lifetime. If you have an IQ of 130, then that means you're not supposed to have the same amount of intelligence in your lifetime as Albert Einstein did, who had an IQ of 185. And there are flaws with measuring IQ. There are flaws with IQ in general, but we have to admit, though, IQ is currently the best way to measure how much intelligence a person can have within a lifetime. And to be fair,
I think
there was this-
IQ measures. I think IQ measures how good you are at taking tests that are made to determine your IQ. I mean, I think
there's this
Okay, but
study
people who score
conducted.
high on IQ tests are there's been a very established correlation between people with very high IQs and success in later life.
But
People
no,
with
no, no.
high
Okay,
IQs
hold on,
don't
Vlad.
tend
I was
to be
going to get
homeless
to
on the
that.
street.
I was going to get into that. Here's the thing. There was a study conducted by the King's College London, and what they did was they took 11,000 people. Some men, at least half of them were identifiable twins. Some were non-identified twins. And what they did was they measured. There was this test taken in the United Kingdom. I forgot what it was called, but it's a compulsory test that determines if you can go to a university or not. And if you pass it, then you can go to a university. What they did was they not only looked at the IQ of the 11,000 people taking the test, but they also, and by the way, all participants were born between 1994 and 1996. And when they looked at this, what they realized was there's tons of factors into this, and it wasn't just the will to pass the test, but it was also many other genetic factors. And what they found was, when it comes to academic performance and academic achievements, it is 64% inheritable. It's genetic. Many genetic factors play into how well you will do in the education system. It's unimaginable. I mean, I'm going to make a video about this. DNA is perhaps one of the most imperative things to establishing a good society. This has been the conclusion of Richard Dawkins, for example, because in the end, if everyone had the genes that serves as a prerequisite to make people intellectually disabled, nothing can be done. So you have to understand that IQ and genes in general needs to be taken into account when you're trying to. I'll just let you talk on about this from here.
Don't you run into an eventual point in time where the only people left in society are autistic people?
I mean, I have Asperger's syndrome, and there is a link between high functioning and Asperger's syndrome and IQ, and you could argue that correlation does not equal causation, but as someone whose parents did have an
Peter?
high IQ, yes?
Greetings.
saying,
Sorry to interrupt.
Hey, how's it going, Cater?
That's always good.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm pretty good.
We're doing fine.
You aristocratic fedora tipper, what brings you here?
I don't know. I've never actually owned a fedora.
I don't know, it seems like you would you would wear a fedora, but you're not a fedora tipper, I don't think.
Well, we're having a pretty heated discussion, Cater. I don't know if this debate is going to break your cool or not.
Well, it takes quite a lot to break my cool. I like to think I have a rather long fuse, but what's the contention about?
Well, essentially we're talking about the correlation between ethnicity and IQ.
Yeah.
Well, that's,
No, we're talking about more than just that. We're talking about DNA and immigration and stuff like that.
Okay, well, who is for that, and who is opposed to that having any kind of part to play?
Gus is opposed to the idea that race or ethnicity determines your IQ level, and I'm on the fence. I agree that DNA...
Whoa. I don't think race or ethnicity determines your IQ. Where'd you get that idea?
No, I said it doesn't. I said you don't believe it does.
Okay, because I heard
I'm
you
on the
say
fence.
it does.
I believe IQ is genetic, or at least your genes do impact your IQ level and many other things, such as academic performance and academic achievement. In fact, I'm going to leave a source in the chat that I'm going to use in my upcoming video about the importance of DNA in a population, but I don't believe necessarily that race has to determine your IQ level, because even though it's genetic, environmental factors also do help in determining your IQ at a young age. Your IQ level is just simply a determination of how much intelligence you can withhold overall in a lifetime.
Okay.
I mean, keep in mind that we determine IQ by getting people to sit down at a table and take a bunch of tests, either orally or written. Okay. And if you come from a culture where sitting still for an hour and a half to 2 hours at a time is just not something that you do, then even that basic thing can impact how you're considered intelligent by others.
Okay, wait a minute, Gus. it has been established by many scientists throughout the years that blacks.
Oh, I love it when you say stuff like that.
Okay, well, I mean, you know what? I'm going to post a study in the chat right now, and you can look at it
Me
or
too.
you can not. But
Me too.
It establishes the correlation between blacks of various socioeconomic backgrounds and a lower IQ. Whether blacks are raised in very rich, affluent households or very poor households, like in sub-Saharan Africa, they tend to test at the exact same IQ level, which is very below whites, East Asians, and Ashkenazi Jews. So you can't say that IQ is completely environmentally determined. That's just not the case at all.
Well, let's have a look at your study. Before we do anything else, let's have a look at your study.
It was published by J. Phil Rushton, the guy I mentioned before.
What about my study? You should look at that too.
It's a very long study, so you're going to have to take a whole day.
Let's say for the sake of argument that you are correct, but wouldn't you admit that basically Japanese people or East Asians, who am I echoing through?
Tom, as usual.
It's me. I'm going to mute myself.
Can we take up a collection to buy him a headset?
I'm not using a headset. I'm using the thing.
I'm using a headset.
I need to purchase one. I think I do have one, but I don't know where it is.
Okay, so let's say for the sake of argument that race does determine your IQ or have some impact on it. Wouldn't you admit, Tom, that East Asians, like the Japanese, are obviously intellectually superior to white people? I'm sorry, but Japanese people are far more intelligent than you are, and most Canadians and Americans in general.
You're right. You're right, Nero. But you have to realize that there are different types of IQ. There's spatial IQ. There's verbal Iq.
I'm talking about IQ overall. That's the IQ.
Well, I mean, there
most
is no IQ overall. There's just different types of IQ.
Yes, there is.
East Asians tend to score higher on spatial IQ. Like they're very good at mathematics and physics.
But the IQ I'm talking about is overall IQ. The amount of knowledge in total you could possess in a lifetime. Albert Einstein.
But that's not IQ. That's just knowledge you can. Well, you have to understand.
That's what IQ is. IQ measures the maximum amount of knowledge you can possess within a lifetime. Like, for example, if someone has an IQ of 115, they'll never be able, in this lifetime, be able to possess the amount of knowledge that Albert Einstein could ever have in his lifetime. That's just a basic fact.
No, that's not true. You seem to be confused about what IQ measures. IQ measures essentially what you can say is your brain's horsepower, but it's not raw knowledge. I could have an extraordinarily
No, I mean, it's the amount of raw knowledge you can have.
What?
No. IQ measures your mental horsepower. He's absolutely right.
Yeah, thank you, Gus. Gus, are you familiar with Charles A. Murray or Richard Herrnstein?
No, I'm not.
Okay, well, they wrote a bell called the book, The Bell Curve, which is it's a highly contested book. Some people take issue with some of the methods that they used to obtain their data. But either way, I'd highly recommend that. It's a pretty interesting book on these topics. It deals heavily with race and IQ.
Oh, thanks for the tip.
Sure. Sorry to interrupt, Nero. Go ahead.
Okay, Oz, what's your opinion on race and IQ?
Those books? I'm sorry to interrupt you, Nero.
I would say a lot of it has to do with culture. The East Asian, like specifically parents, they push their kids because their kids definitely need to get a job, and I think that definitely affects IQ scores. Now, if we're looking at the IQ scores of Australia, where everyone's a lazy fuck, I don't think we're going to do so well. Let's face it. I just want one more thing, right?
Yeah.
Does anyone know where the origins of the Australian accent come from?
Where?
It's thought to believe. British. No, it's thought to be believed to come from alcoholism.
Really?
Yeah. So.
And anybody who would say otherwise is a fucking wanker.
Hey, yeah, how you going, mate? You see the really long words?
I've never heard
Drunk
that before.
people do it.
I don't know how you guys are going to be able to farm them kangaroos when you're all drunk. I don't get that. I've been trying to milk this kangaroo for an hour and a half. That's a billabong tree. Fuck off. I don't tell you how to do your fucking business.
They're actually going about and raping us all the time, actually.
So
raping people.
Gus, so you don't think that
What?
one's genetic components have any part to play at all in determining average intelligence?
I don't. No. Well, obviously, you can win the genetic lottery and have the capacity for enormous mental horsepower. What I take issue with is that race has a function in that, and that certain races are categorized into specific IQ sets by dint of the fact that they are X color or Y color. I just don't buy that.
I'm gonna, guys, before we continue, I'm gonna have to put my hands up. You're kind of right. It does measure brain power and intelligence quotient. However, the reason why I'm saying it measures the intelligence you can have in a lifetime is based on the noun given to me by the Oxford Dictionary. It is a number representing a person's reasoning ability. And also, there's another definition that was given. Let me look for it. It represents. Fuck it. They also say it represents your reasoning capacity as well. So I'm kind of right to the extent that it does measure the amount of intelligence you can have in a lifetime to some degree, but it also measures your overall reasoning capacity, and that itself can change. So I will put my hands up on that one. I was kind of wrong. My apologies.
Can I break the narrative stream for a minute here and address Tom? Tom, sure. I've been doing a little bit of research on J. Philip Rushton, and this guy's a bit fucking sketchy, man. Like, I'm looking at a citation, a cited paragraph with 2 citations, by the way, in the Wikipedia article on Rushton, and it says Rushton's work was criticized in the scholarly literature. He generally responded, sometimes in the same journal. In 1995, in the Journal of Black Studies, Zach Cernowski wrote, quote, some of Rushton's references to scientific literature with respects to racial differences in sexual characteristics turned out to be references to a non-scientific, semi-pornographic book and to an article by Philip Nobal in Penthouse Magazine's forum.
That has nothing to fucking do with the article
The guy is sketchy. The scientist is fucking...
That has nothing to do with the article, the academic article from the American Psychological Institute, even the American Psychological Association that I linked to you. That's
wait a minute, Vlad. Is this peer reviewed? Is this a peer reviewed study?
Nero, it's from the American Psychological Institution. Look at it.
Okay? Yeah, but here's the thing.
Psychological Institution.
But here's the thing, Vlad. James Watson, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with him. James Watson believes that IQ and race have something to do with each other, but you know what? People on the right typically tend to deny psychological sources when it doesn't conform to their preconceived notions. For example, when the American Psychological Association removed homosexuality as a mental illness in 1977, do you agree with that? Do you believe
Tom's argument?
It does. Because here's the thing: anyone can admit that psychology has been affected by political correctness or has been affected by some external force or bias. You can't say this psychological resource is right while this one is wrong, because what you're doing is you are purely basing what the sources are saying.
Nero, it's a peer-reviewed academic journal, okay?
So is the American Psychological Association. They're peer-reviewed as well. So is the American.
That's what I'm saying.
So is the American. The American Psychological. The American Psychiatric Association.
Tom answered your question. Why are you still bitching about it? It's
the American Psychiatric Association has peer-reviewed studies, and they deny IQ and racial differences. So I don't see your point. There's peer-reviewed studies.
Link me to a study that denies it, and I'll look it over. I linked you to a peer-reviewed study that says that there is a definitive correlation between genetics and IQ. And if you can link me to an article or a peer-reviewed academic study that disproves or argues against the evidence that I have shown you, then I'll look at it. But
I have a lot of respect for the peer review. I have a lot of respect for the peer review process, but the sun doesn't shine through its asshole. Some things can get by peer review, And I'm sorry, but J. Philip Rushton is a guy who is fucking soaked in controversy. And a good chunk of it negative.
Yeah, he was edgy. He was basically
Everyone
edgy.
be quiet. Let's just assume that everything that J. Philip Rushton said was a lie, okay? But Cater Endless recently brought up the bell curve by Herrnstein and Murray, which has been widely cited for about 30 years to demonstrate a definitive link between genetics and IQ. So, I mean...
Genetics is one thing.
Like,
Genetics is one thing, but you weren't talking about genetics. You were talking about race.
Race is genetics.
No, it's not.
Yeah, what do you think race is? It's a bunch of people who are genetically similar. What the fuck else is a race?
Race is an awful lot more than that, and an awful lot less at the same time.
We can argue about culture, but
I mean, the human.
Oh, Jenny, hold on. Why doesn't Gus tell us what he thinks is what his definition of race is? Because it seems to be a bit different than what I think most people's definition of race is.
Everyone provide your personal connotation or denotation of what race is.
Yeah.
A group of people who congregate historically from one area or another that are genetically similar.
Well, one thing we should do is, what is the difference between an ethnic group and a racial group?
It's the same thing.
Group.
Oh, they're not.
But those words are synonyms, dude. They're just different words for the same thing. For a homogeneous group of people with the same characteristics and gene pool.
Exactly. That's why.
Not necessarily, because an ethnic group can also refer to the culture of a group that belongs to a race. It can also refer to their religion too.
Ethnicity refers to genetics. People with similar genetics.
Exactly. For example, if you have.
I'm not denying. Listen, I'm not denying that what we call race, okay, people of what we call race, will have some genetic traits in common, but you know it is highly contested that IQ is one of them.
Well, not by the studies that I showed you. I mean,
well, okay.
You have studies that show otherwise. I want to read them.
I mean, listen, Tom, you've got better Google foo than I do. I mean, can I, I mean, you've
dude, I'm fucking.
You've obviously got these
better things than you can.
No, I mean, listen, I mean, you're better at seeking out these things on short notice than I am, and I'll give you that. But I mean, that doesn't change the fact that for every one scientist you bring me that says that there is a racial there's a racial correlation to IQ. I'm pretty sure if I spent, even 4 or 5 hours looking for them, I could bring you at least 2 scientists that say that that's either in contest or that they're against that.
I can guarantee you that they're all Jewish.
Oh, well, yeah, that invalidates their argument. They're Jewish.
Oh, come on.
Come on, Vlad. I know you're openly actually anti-Semitic. I'm not saying you... I mean... You think Jews control the world? Come on, man. You just ruined yourself right there. You just raped yourself, basically, by just saying that.
Well, I mean, a lot of the scientists like Stephen Jay Gould, who have argued against this, they're Jewish.
That doesn't invalidate their argument.
No, it doesn't, but it shows that
then why would you even say that in the first place? You're saying it doesn't invalidate...
People who have a concerted interest.
You're making a genetic fallacy right here. You're saying, oh, these people are Jewish, therefore they're probably being biased because Jews want to destroy the white devils.
Could I interrupt for a second?
I'm sorry, man. This is a genetic fallacy. You're committing a genetic fallacy.
Genetic fallacy. Anyways,
it's when you discredit a source based on arbitrary notions, such as age, crime, or whatever.
So you mean discrediting the source with arbitrary notions? You mean like what Gus did when he ad hominem on the science?
I mean, I'm not saying he's innocent either, but
it's not an listen. I mean, if you've got a fellow whose body of work has come under attack because it's been he's been using some sketchy methods. That's an attack on this guy's methods. It's not an attack on him personally. Listen, I'm sure J. Philip Rushton's a really nice guy, who gives his kids pony rides on the weekends. I'm sure he's a really great guy, and I'm sure he'd give you the shirt off his back if you were hurting. But there are criticisms, okay, by legitimate sources against his work. And there's a lot of them. Like, if you go to this Wikipedia, and they're all sourced, if you go to this Wikipedia article, there's fucking citation after citation where this guy has played fast and loose with methodology, fast and loose with the scientific fucking method. And so an awful lot of his work has come under controversy, not just because of its political leanings, but because of what he's done to get that work together. Now, if you think that's an ad hominem attack, I can't help you with that. But on my planet, all that does is it would be the same as if you're saying, okay, Bob came into my house, Bob came into 10 houses to do electrical work as an electrician. He couldn't get the fucking job done. Bob's a shitty electrician. I'm sure Bob's a great guy, but he's a shitty electrician.
But
I
Bob,
think that's a fair point.
You can't tell me the immense hatred against these scientists is not political. Seriously.
Well, you know what? It is fucking facile as hell to point at criticism of scientists and say, well, that's political. That's facile as a motherfucker. I challenge you to get down in the weeds and go picking through like I did with this Wikipedia article. Click on the citations. Look, see for yourself. Instead of just dismissing it all as, oh, well, the people who don't like his stuff are just, they're left-wing dingbats. That's a fucking
right-wing nut.
You call me a smug liberal, I call you a smug conservative, sir, and I challenge you to do what I just fucking did.
He's not conservative.
Man, Manuel is a Marxist. What are you talking about?
You know what? You don't listen. You do not have to be liberal to be a Marxist. I've known an awful lot of tight-assed Marxists in my life, and Manuel is just another one of them, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I mean, conservatism and Marxism aren't opposed to each other. I mean, conservatives in the Western world tend to be like a favor of total privatization like Thatcher was, but there are Marxists out there who are socially conservative, and I mean, there's nothing contradictory about that. Okay, Marxism is an economic philosophy. You can subscribe to Marxist theory of exploitation, like the bourgeoisie oppressing the working class, but still believe in things like how faggots shouldn't be allowed to marry, for example. This evil gay people shouldn't be allowed to marry. You can believe in all that garbage, but you can still subscribe to Marxist economic theory. So I'm just criticizing both sides here. I'm on the fence about this, Saul. I think I want to go to something else, because I don't want to dedicate the rest of this live stream to this topic, because obviously we're not getting anywhere with it. No matter how much we talk about this, we're never going to convince each other of anything, really. I mean, I'm going to leave the audience to decide that, but can we please move the topic?
Supposedly open-minded liberals wouldn't be so closed-minded, we could make some ground here.
Yeah, and if the closed-minded right-wingers would spend a little less time telling the non-open-minded left-wingers what they shouldn't be open-minded about, ...
Well, we're changing the subject.
The research that I've presented.
We're changing the subject. If you keep on trying to keep the subject going when I obviously do not wish to keep this topic going, I will kick you out. Actually, that wouldn't be a good idea. I'm stuck in the corner now, because Tom is actually a...
Why don't you introduce the next topic instead of,
Okay.
Come on.
So what's your thoughts on the current presidential candidates? Like Bernie Sanders. Gus, are you a fan of Bernie Sanders?
I think he's a progressive fellow. I don't think he's ever going to end up being president. I think you guys are going to be stuck. I think you guys are going to be stuck with Hillary.
Oh, come on. The electoral college favors.
Are you Canadian, Gus?
Yeah, I'm Canadian.
I thought so. Okay. that would be a terrifying scenario. Well, a depressing scenario, I think.
But I mean, I think I think there's a lot of the guys now. To me, what would be a pretty scary scenario is if Donald Trump was elected. That would be pretty.
That's not scary. How is that scary?
Because that man is a lunatic. He is a fever swamp.
So is Hillary Clinton.
right?
Hillary Clinton supported going into Libya, which is a big mistake because, let's face it, even though Gaddafi had a terrible social policy, he was the one who rebuilt Libya from the ground up. Because if it weren't for Gaddafi, Libya would never have industrialized. They never would have been the most developed nation in Africa, as recorded by the United Nations before the so-called rebels just, literally raped Gaddafi. That's what they did. They shoved
they
a knife up his
sodomized
rear.
him.
Look, my
Yeah.
only problem with the United States changing regimes is that they should either fucking change all the shitty ones or leave them all alone.
Because
I don't have a, I
let's
mean,
face it.
and by the way, I don't know how old you are, Nero, but I don't think you were around back in the '80s when, in the mid '80s when fucking Gaddafi was doing things like saying, oh, there's going to be a no-fly zone over my country, and if any Americans come anywhere near my country's coastal waters, I'm gonna fuck up their shit. This is what happens when, and the only reason Gaddafi had been behaving himself for so long, and I hate to say this because I'm not a fan of Reagan, but Reagan basically kicked the living shit out of him, and I mean, as far as the whole thing about Libya, I wish I was more informed on why he was attacked for the second time.
Well,
but as I said earlier, my only regret about Gaddafi is that he wasn't taken out back in the fucking '80s.
It has
That
to
guy
do
was-
with his gold.
But here's the thing. Here's the reason why. There was this. What he wanted to do was he had this plan involving oil trade because Libya had a very successful oil sector to their economy. That's what boosted their GDP growth. And what happened was Gaddafi wanted a trading system where the amount of oil a country could have from Libya would be dependent on the amount of gold they have. And Gaddafi wanted to have this expand to other Islamic and African nations. So nations that we rely on for oil, we would have to be dependent on the amount of gold we have to trade with that instead of the dollar and euros. And that's basically the reason why we wanted to kill Gaddafi back in 2011, because his trade policy would have had a negative impact on Western societies.
So he was being a royal pain in the ass, then, is what you're saying.
Basically speaking.
Yeah,
but
that's usually what happens when you make yourself a fucking global pain in the ass. The United Nations fucking rubs its hands together for a while and then says, "Oh, you Americans, maybe you could do something about them," because the United Nations has no military of its own, which I'm sure is something many Americans are happy for.
They're not the only ones rubbing their hands together.
Oh my God, the evil Jews!
They were. I do believe that the Jews did play a part in the overthrow of Gaddafi.
As a whole,
Israel.
are you referring to the demographics
The
or
Jews.
everyone?
That's right, the Jews, all of the Jews.
No, I didn't mean all of the Jews.
That means the little old lady in Brooklyn who lives in the back and doesn't
No.
see anything.
No, that's not what I mean, Gus. No.
I would
Rabbi
put Passover
Schleiger. Rabbi
Rabbi
Schleiger
Schleiger is not behind the overthrow of Gaddafi. I said
Talking about the
Zionists.
Yeah.
Greetings,
Well,
Ken.
who are the dirty Zionists then, if they're not the little old lady in Brooklyn?
Who's Ken?
They're you, Gus.
Oh, well, I'm not a Jew, Manuel, but hey, nice try.
Who's Ken?
You can deny it all.
We must spill the blood of the white devils.
But one day you will. Justice will be served on the day of the rope.
Deus Volt, brother.
Okay. I mean, let's hope the Chekists and their fucking the neo-Chekists and their zeal for the new revolution don't accidentally shoot you like the other
let's go back
Chekists
to
did.
Gaddafi. We're straying way off topic. All we're doing is insulting each other right now.
Well, actually, if I can interrupt here for a second, you actually weren't talking about Gaddafi. You originally asked what our opinions of the American presidential candidates were, and you started talking about.
I brought up a flaw about Hillary Clinton, and that's how it evolved to this discussion.
Yeah, I had wanted to interject before about that because when people tend to mention, like why they don't like one of the other ones, the thing that everybody does is they'll go off to whatever candidate they think is worse. Say, oh yeah, well this one is so much worse, and I've never liked that sort of comparison strategy. Is the mindset of let's pick the lesser of two evils. I would just not pick if I was faced with a decision of, one great evil and one lesser evil, wouldn't pick either of them. Find another way, or attempt to.
Yeah, but in some cases you have to
but-
be pragmatic. In some cases you have to be pragmatic.
Yeah, of course you do.
And this,
Don't
and
get
let's say-
me wrong, Cater. I think the entire fucking electoral system in the United States needs a fucking overhaul. I think it
Good
needs an
man.
overhaul in Canada too. But barring that, until you can get the house built, you got to live in the tent beside it, right? So
Yeah, of
you
course.
know.
I don't mean that I wouldn't vote for somebody that I had a lot of issues with. I just mean that
I do think in your luckily I'm Canadian, so I don't have to. We've already elected our guy, and he's not perfect. I never thought he was, but he was the lesser. He was the lesser of a bunch of evils, and I think you guys, in my opinion, the lesser of your evils is Hillary Clinton.
Wait, what was wrong with Stephen Harper?
What was wrong with Stephen Harper?
Trump.
Oh.
You say all this bad stuff about Trump, Gus, but yet you don't really know that they take the things he says out of context.
Yeah, I'm sure that's it.
well,
I'm sure
sometimes they
that's
do.
it.
Sometimes he just does say really stupid shit, like when he with the fucking taco bowl, and he's like,
Oh, yeah.
I love tacos. Trump Towers makes the best. That was so stupid.
That was funny though.
It was funny, but it was stupid.
I mean, the other thing too is that I look at Trump's record. I mean, he says I come to the table as a successful businessman.
I mean, the only thing I can really criticize is his 4 bankruptcies, but they weren't bankruptcies. According to the law, what he did was it was called reorganizations. It's basically where there's a certain part of your company that is basically pulling the rest of the company down the drain. So you reorganize or close down those things to clear up the debt, and that's what he did. There was a casino that caused billions of dollars in debt within a year. So what Trump did, well, he didn't file it, but the people who were running the company that he hired, they decided, okay, well, in order to clear the debt, we need to reorganize the business structure. So they reorganized the casino. That's the legal term for it. These weren't Chapter 8 bankruptcies where like the entire company is bankrupt because they can't pay their dues. These were basically reorganizing the company as a whole in order for you to achieve a success. And you know what? Trump is an investor. Every single investor has to deal with debt in some way, shape, or form. Every single investor has to deal with risk taking. That's the whole backbone of capitalism.
But this guy got his start in business by looking for creative ways to throw poor black people out of their fucking housing projects in New York. Okay?
I'm really skeptical of claims that he was always a racist.
You gotta stop watching the Young Turks, man.
You know what? Here's the thing. I don't know if his reasons for doing it were racial at all. I think he just saw those people as in his way of turning that real estate into something that he wanted to turn it into.
Right. Are you talking about eminent domain?
Eminent domain, I mean, you guys should fucking quake in fear every time somebody breaks out that.
No, eminent domain is great.
They should keep those words behind fucking glass to be fucking broken into only when the Martians attack.
Okay, eminent domain is actually pretty beneficial depending on the objective behind it. For example, the Keystone Pipeline, eminent domain. The high schools that you enjoyed going to, that required that some houses had to be moved or taken down. And you know what? Here's the thing about eminent domain. You wouldn't have many public services, or many of the services we rely on for public use, if we did not take away property, or we gave people the option to have their property removed in exchange. And every time
but that's a public use of eminent domain, Nero. That's what we up here in Canada call expropriation. Okay. And what happens is the government comes in and says, look, it is for the greater good that we put a highway in from this place to this place, and unfortunately your little farm's in the way. Here's a check for what we believe is fair market value. Get thy arse the fuck out, and we will put that's an awful lot different. I cannot imagine any use of I can't imagine any use of a private sector businessman should be allowed anywhere near the fucking nuclear weapon of eminent domain.
Well, would you trust Hillary Clinton with a nuclear bomb? I'm just messing. Let's go back to the.
I actually have a pretty good point to make on eminent domain.
Okay.
I live in a town where basically two like major highways cross, so there's tons of eminent domain all the time to clear the way for freeways and all this shit. You know what I mean? And nobody cares about it. It's not a big deal. Like the government might, take a few square feet off someone's ranch property, and trust me, you make a lot more money than you would on the market off the government when they do eminent domain. Like,
Exactly. Eminent domain is
their
great.
people make way more than they need to be off eminent domain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Eminent domain is actually a pretty good thing, but let's go back to the
common,
issue of private
super normal.
eminent
It's
domain.
not, yeah, it's not some big scary thing. It's totally normal.
Plus,
Let me
example.
interject for a second here. See, eminent domain is great for people that only care about money and they don't care about the property. For people that have a deep attachment to their land, it is not great. I can tell you that. And what's
But
more
you
is
have to
the eminent domain that took place
You're
under
making
Bush.
an argument from emotions.
What? Well, that doesn't mean it's
You're
invalid.
making an argument from emotions.
Yeah,
Well,
this
here's the
isn't all about high school debate class, Nero. I mean, real people sometimes don't follow logical arguments, and you have to deal with them too.
No, it is
Yeah, but
rational to take.
I don't
Nero.
trust arguments. Sorry.
Hold on a second. It is rational to take into consideration the emotions of the people who are going to be forced out of their home.
Here.
I only trust statistics and data that come from reputable sources of information, and I could care less. I mean, if someone, I'm probably gonna, when I leave,
if your grandma walked up to you and said, honey, I really don't want you to do X anymore, you're gonna say, well, Grandma, show me a spreadsheet, lay that pie graph on me.
But let's go back to Trump's eminent domain usage.
Okay.
Like one of Jeb Bush's criticism of Donald Trump was that he tried to, I'm gonna quote him, he tried to take away the property of an old woman in order to build a casino parking lot. But here's the thing. When the old lady protested, Donald Trump said, okay, fine, I won't do that. So he obviously he doesn't abuse eminent domain. He clearly, in many cases, gets the consent of other people. And you know what? The thing about eminent domain, both private and public, when eminent domain occurs, the people are usually paid more than their fair market value. In fact, if I lived on a house and the government or a private corporation or private company wanted to use that for something that is good or provides a good service, and I could care less, as long as I'm paid more than the price of that apartment or whatever complex I live in at the time, then I don't see what the problem is. Furthermore, about appeals to emotion, when you're arguing points, you don't appeal to the emotions of others. You appeal to data. You only use logos and pathos. You don't use not pathos. You only use logos and ethos. You don't use pathos.
No,
Pathos
that is not true.
You wish, my friend. You wish. You wish.
Pathos is weak when it comes to arguments.
So says ye.
Well, you were talking before, Nero, about you have to be pragmatic. That's certainly true, and you have to be pragmatic in regards to the emotions of people that are attached to their property, that really love that house. Like maybe you're talking to some farmers who built their house, right? They're not just going to say like, here's a check, and they're going to be like, oh, great, this my ancestral home is now going to be taken away from me, and I have no say in it, but hey, I'm rich. You have to be pragmatic and take that into consideration. That's very important to a lot of people.
I agree, Peter.
The other thing too is eminent domain. I don't mind the public sector using eminent domain because the public sector ultimately is accountable to the voter. Okay, the private sector isn't accountable to anybody but the public sector.
It's actually accountable to consumers.
Oh, really? So what would consumers have been able to stop buying that would have kept the Trump casino? Had Trump decided to use eminent domain on that little old lady, what could consumers have stopped buying after the casino? I mean, it's impractical.
They wouldn't have gone to the casino.
Well, okay, except that doesn't help the little old lady.
Would have lost business.
But that doesn't help the little old lady, does it? She's pitched out on the fucking street, right? So I mean.
She's paid a good price for it. She gets paid a good price for it. She can find another home. If you're rewarded $500,000 for a property that was only $200,000, and you can buy an even better
there is no
home.
proof. There's no proof on earth that she would have been given that kind of generous
Plus,
offer.
she would have died anyway. I'm just messing.
Well, I mean, so what? I mean, God help you if you end up old with a little house that you.
I'm
you
joking,
lived in all
man.
your life.
If you haven't noticed,
all right,
I have a
all
dark
right.
sense of humor.
Okay, well, having said that, I mean, as I said, the difference between eminent domains used for the public and private sector is that the public sector can be immediately accessed and immediately influenced by the constituencies and the voters involved, whereas the private sector, it's, well, maybe they'll suffer, maybe consumers will be wowed by the casino, maybe. And I'm sorry, but eminent domain does not belong in the hands of the private sector.
Yeah.
I'm not for eminent
I have to
domain at all, to be honest, unless I'm paid for it. But I'm against eminent domain. I personally would not give up my property.
Okay,
well, enjoy
I
the
mean,
bulldozers coming in to kill you.
Yeah.
Well, I would be armed to the teeth. I would be like shooting at the eminent domain, like.
Put the
And
bulldozer blade
then
up.
the SWAT team will come after you and pop a bullet in your brain.
Just put the line the windows of the fucking cockpit of the bulldozer with Lexan plastic. Put the blade up and drive through your fucking house. Job done.
I can just imagine America armed like John Rambo trying to fight bulldozers and SWAT teams.
Yes.
That's right. It's never over. It's never over. I didn't ask you. You asked me. I was driving through the streets, and then my buddy exploded. I can't find your legs.
This reminds me of that Squidbillies episode.
That the government should just steal people's farms and stuff like that.
Yeah,
that reminds me of the Squidbillies episode I once watched.
It's a shitty. Listen, America, it's a shitty thing. It's a shitty thing when a highway or something like that, or they need a proving ground or whatever goes through your territory. Believe me, I've talked as part of a school project when I was younger. I went looking for some older people whose land had been taken by the government through expropriation, and they weren't necessarily given fair market value. In one case, he was so old that it was around the time of the First World War, where the government said, "Look, we need a barracks hall to train troops for this particular unit. You've got the land, get out." This is because of the war, and it's a shitty thing. But there are times when it's necessary, and the last thing you want is to have a situation where you look at a fucking highway that's going straight, makes a sudden 90-degree turn to avoid your little farm, and then goes straight. I mean, you can't municipally or federally plan that way. You just can't.
Oz, what is your opinion on eminent domain?
I think there's compromise that can be reached, to be honest.
One of our most famous movies, called The Castle, is essentially based on eminent domain, where an airfield. It's not.
Man, what's the loudest typist on earth?
Manuel.
What the fuck are airfield? My brain is just died. What the fuck are airfields called when they're like used for commercial purposes?
Airports.
Airports. Yeah, that's the fucking word.
There we go.
Where the airport wanted to expand onto public property, well, private property of people's houses, and what they did is they went through our version of eminent domain, offered the people shit all money, and basically these people ended up coming together, and then they ended up finding a lawyer, a Queen's Counsel, to fight for their behalf. And in the end, they managed to force the airport to essentially take up land that was on the other side. It was just a little bit more expensive. So when it comes to eminent domain, a lot of the times it's just corporations. They just ask the government to do it for them.
I'm terribly sad. I don't think Manuel likes me.
I don't think he's a fan.
Nah.
I honestly don't like you either, Gus, but I'd put up with you.
All right, well.
I think Gus is intelligent though. I give him that.
I heard he fuck you too, America, but have another beer and enjoy yourself.
Oh, I don't even know you, man. Don't fuck me.
No, America.
I'm one of the. Well, hey, I'm from
America, not Cater.
Yeah, the
Oh,
guy
you-
at America, not you, man.
Oh, hey, yeah.
Country.
I thought you were saying like "fuck you, America."
Fuck you, you fucking Yanks. Fuck you. You too, Australia.
Okay.
America,
Just one more thing on the main
Another
thing.
another depiction of.
The
Wait,
government
wait.
fucked up. The government fucked up with that airport situation. Now there's a movie that everyone knows in Australia, and every single time the government comes up with eminent domain, they get watched like hawks.
Well, yeah, and the government should be subject to oversight by the public. Half the fucking problem in North America with the democratic system is that the fucking voter has given up.
And guess what, Gus?
What, America?
I don't believe in democracy. And
Oh my god.
Yes, I believe in a republic. I don't believe in democracy.
I am a stranger in a strange land. So, how do you think
That's what the Constitution says? It doesn't say it's a democracy. It's by the rule of law.
Yeah, it's
we
a
go,
democratic
the rule of law.
republic.
And who makes the law?
Well, it's threefold.
No, I want America to tell me who makes the law.
Well, technically, the people via their representatives, but still, I think there's something.
So it's a democracy then.
But here's the
Yes,
thing, though.
I think
For
the
example, Gus. For example, the president, for example, he is not. Even though the media likes to say that our vote counts in electing the president, it actually depends on what vote, because we have to vote for the electoral college, and the electoral college that is democratically elected by us, that electoral college are the ones who actually determine who our president is going to be.
This is true, but you guys direct elect just about everybody else in your system. As a matter of fact, if there's one criticism I can aim at your democracy, it's that you elect and put up for election way too many positions. For one thing, the whole notion of electing your judges and sheriffs is fucking terrifying to me.
We elect. Oh yeah, we do. Yeah.
Absolutely terrifying. Electing attorneys.
Why is that terrifying to you?
Because you open yourself up to the justice mixing too closely with politics.
Yeah, well, that's.
Because a district attorney should never have to worry about whether or not he quote unquote appears to be soft or tough on crime.
Yeah, I actually agree with you completely on that one. I was just curious what the reasons were.
Okay, Gus, what's your view on a...
Okay, I want to go back to eminent domain very quickly.
Well, wait a minute. Nero, we've beat eminent domain to death, and America hasn't had an awful lot of chance.
I want to bring up another media example.
Thank you, Gus. Even though I hate you, I will...
Yeah, well, poor America. He's been out there, waiting for Manuel to finish shitting all over me and stuff, and he's been quiet and, slowly loading his rifles, fucking marking in the sight, testing the wind.
Let me ask, America, why don't you like Gus? Because I wasn't here for the beginning of this. I
can't stand his views. I don't hate him as a person, but I just can't stand his views. He makes me cringe.
I know, and a lot of the stuff America...
Vlad, I can kind of view as like...
We can agree on anything. I mean, you both make each other cringe, so you guys are even.
But
anyway.
you know what? If he came over to my place, I'd still cook him a big fat fucking steak and pour a real
and you too, Gus. If you came over,
pour a real Canadian beer down his fucking throat, and we'd probably sit down and talk about all sorts of stuff and carefully avoid politics for the fucking.
Everything the Canucks talk about, hockey and beavers and horse riding.
That's right. Beavers.
By the way, okay. So, Oz brought up an actual serious media depiction of eminent domain, but there was this one comedy show that made fun of eminent domain. Where
did you post that in the chat?
Like, okay, I know Canadians... Wait a minute.
Post what, sorry?
Yeah, can you post a link to it in the chat, the eminent domain?
The movie Cats, I don't know how he can do that, but...
Oh, I mean like a link to
piracy, man.
What about piracy?
Just pirate the DVD and
it's called Castle?
Yeah. Oh, are you talking about torrenting? Oh, I don't do that anymore. My fucking ISP sent me the nasty gram. I don't do that no more.
I don't do it at all because I'm an artist, so that issue hits very close to home. I can't stand when people say, "Hey, just go and pirate it." I think, no, you fucking thief. You're a disgusting person, and you should hate yourself.
That's right.
I know. I certainly hate anybody who torrents music videos or movies. They're disgusting people.
Well, I don't need to torrent music videos because they're all on YouTube, and that's perfectly legal.
Just a word of warning: if you watch the movie, it might be an argument for eugenics as well, because
Oh Jesus!
Oh wait, no, we didn't.
Some of you boys down there in Billabong Place, throwing yourselves around, eh?
Let's just say we didn't exactly pick the high class Australian.
Wait a minute,
characters.
Gus. Are there any American adult animated comedies in your country?
American adult animated comedies.
Like Family Guy and stuff like that?
We just lost Tom. Yeah, we have access to Family Guy. We have access to South Park. We have access to
have you
American
heard of this?
Dad.
There's a show that makes fun of hillbillies and stuff like that called Squidbillies. You heard of that show?
I've never heard of it. No.
Oh, there was this one episode where they made fun of eminent domain.
You know up here we don't get the same Netflix luxuriousness you guys get down there in the States. Eh? You guys have 10,000 titles on your Netflix. We have 335.
Netflix privilege.
Yeah, seriously, fucking the struggle is real, man.
Yeah.
And they wonder why people torrent, right? Like, listen, torrenting. I want to say right off the bat, torrenting is theft. Even when I was torrenting, I never denied that I was stealing. Okay.
Good man.
And Cater can hate me if he wants to, but at the end of the day,
No. As long as you admit that as long as you admit that it's theft, I can't stand it when people they just say it's not. They're like, no, it's just free because it's online.
I never treated that stuff like it was my right to have it for the taking. But you would, a lot of the industries that grab a hold of intellectual property make it tough as hell for you to do stuff fucking legally with it. I mean, you just look at fucking Netflix for one. Like for the longest time, a lot of Canadians and a lot of other nationals used VPNs to pretend they were Americans so they could get access to what the fucking Americans got access to. Now, Netflix cracked down on that, but
in Canada, you can make James Bond fan fiction, I think, right? And in fact, in Britain, you can too.
But I mean, there's all sorts of, there's all sorts of shit that the industry is clinging on to, thinking that, it's all about squeezing the last dollar. I mean, the music industry should have taught all these other industries a big fucking lesson. In that, when they tried to crack down, when they spent all their time trying to crack down on Napster and shit. And eventually they just.
I think this is for another live stream. We should bring libertarians who oppose intellectual property rights onto the stream because because there is a case for abolishing intellectual property, which I don't necessarily agree with. But I'd be fun for you guys to debate.
Shit. I'm sure Cater would just fucking love that shit.
Yeah,
Cater would be like, oh yeah, abolish intellect. Well, they already. Listen, there are already places in the world where intellectual property doesn't mean anything. People's Republic of China, anybody?
Yeah, exactly.
Seriously.
I always ask people that when they purport that idea, is that what you want? Do you want their model? And if invariably they don't know their model, so I say go look at it.
Anarcho-capitalists, for example, those idiots called anarcho-capitalists like Luis Marrero. I mean, he's in the closet about it, but we all know he's an anarcho-capitalist who says that.
I don't think you should blame all anarcho-capitalists for that, because some.
But no, because anarcho-capitalists believe that intellectual property can only be enforced by the state, and it's unjust form of private property. So therefore, we should abolish it. And anarcho-communists, oh boy, those guys are a joy. Anarcho-communists believe that all private property, including intellectual property, should be abolished.
Yeah, well, there are always people who,
I hate anarchism really in any form, although my flag may appear somewhat anarchistic.
Well,
there are always people in the world who haven't played BioShock enough times to understand, but what do you do, right? So
I don't think that's.
I'm sorry, Gus. I have to disagree with you. Half-Life 2 is better than BioShock.
Well, as a gaming experience or as a teaching tool against a specific...
A game experience.
Okay, well, I'm talking about one of the things that I love about BioShock is that it's a somewhat ham-fisted lesson against the Ayn Randian fucking, I mean, I always thought that Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged should have an alternate title of I Got Mine, so fuck you. But,
I have the book too.
Hey, I like Atlas Shrugged. Not all of it, but it's pretty good. I like it. I like the Fountainhead. The Fountainhead is much better.
I was all ready to like you and everything, Cater.
And then I just dropped the ball.
You have such a nice voice, and then you just left a fucking deuce on my pillow, man. Like, oh, Cater. You just popped a deuce on my pillow, Cater. What am I supposed to do now?
You know, like, what is your
I
view on
couldn't tell you,
Augustus
man.
Saul Invictus? If any of you know who Augustus Saul Invictus is.
I do, yeah. My friends. Hello, my friends. He's got a weird voice.
Oh man, he was unfairly barred from entering from Canada by these.
Oh yeah. I heard about that.
Oh, I love it when people claim they were unfairly barred from entering Canada. What did Augustus? What did Augustus the Unconquered Son have to say for himself?
They were afraid that if he arrived, that riots would start in the country or something.
By the way, that's what Saul Invictus means, fellas.
Why not ask why
he was barred? The reason he was barred was because they claimed he was a fascist and that his presence itself would, like America said, start violent altercations in the streets.
Yeah, because that's exactly what we need here in Canada, to have fucking punch-ups. That's, you know, listen,
Hey guys.
He's not a fascist. He's a libertarian.
One of the things about Canada that Americans, I think, don't quite realize is that down there, you guys believe in life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. Up here, we believe in peace, order, and good government. Okay? So we give our police a much greater hand in shutting down shit that's going to start shit, that leads to shit, and ends up in shit, and turns it all to shit. And we say, fuck that shit, police that shit up before it becomes any shit to shit about. So that's the doctrine of shit as applied to policing. Thank you very much.
Gus, a man who gives a lot of shits.
That's a lot of shit I give. Except for the shit you took on my pillow, Kiner. You broke my heart, man. We were in the middle of a fucking bromance, and you broke my heart,
Gus,
Kiner.
you need to understand that Augustus Saul Invictus, he's not like going to start anything. He's just a very eccentric.
Yeah, but you know how this shit goes, right? Like, he stands up and says something, and then some guy stands up and says, "Hey, you're full of shit," and some guy says, "Hey, fuck that shit," and then all of a sudden they're having a fucking punch up, and one guy turns the other
You're
guy.
not my buddy, guy.
And then there's 3 or 4 people that get into shit, and then all of a sudden there's fucking everything goes to shit. And I mean, honestly, I mean we also banned fucking Ann Coulter from speaking here, which frankly, you know,
I love Ann Coulter. She's hilarious.
Oh God, she fucking.
I agree with some of the things he says.
She's a soul munching
Augustus?
But I
just looked up Augustus. Wait a minute. I looked up Augustus Invictus. Is that who you're talking about?
Augustus Saul Invictus.
Dude, the guy's a libertarian. He has a neo-Nazi client, and Canada banned him over it. That's weird.
Well, because he's a lawyer. He has many different clients. He helps a lot of people who got in trouble with the drug war.
Oh God.
What a libertarian.
You're right. That motherfucker's exactly who Canada needs.
Well, he's a lawyer, guys. He has to.
So when are you gonna ban Justin Trudeau? I've heard he's quite violent.
Yeah, he's quite fun. Yeah, Boobygate. Fuck. Did you see the video on that? Did you see any of the YouTube video on Boobygate? Justin Trudeau had his back to that chick. He didn't even know what the hell he did. You know.
No, I missed this. What happened?
Okay.
Oh, I have to go.
It would probably take a lot less time if I went hunting for a YouTube video to show you guys. So give me a minute. Talk amongst yourselves, and I'll go see if I can find a decent video of Boobygate here.
Okay.
But yeah, guys. I mean, to be honest, I think I would run like with Invictus as my vice president if like I was.
Oh Jesus!
I don't know enough about him. All I know is that he's a very good public speaker. Certainly.
He's a pagan.
He's an excellent.
He's a pagan.
He is a pagan.
That's cool. I mean, I used to be not used to be, but I actually like paganism. I like the culture that it had prior to.
He's a Thelemite, so it's a Egyptian paganism essentially.
Yeah, that's actually pretty unique. Actually, I like pagans. A lot of my friends are pagans. I especially like Odinism. That's the most interesting pagan religion to me.
What Norse paganism?
The Norse, yes. The Norse gods?
Yes, those are the most interesting to me.
Those guys are fucking crazy.
Indeed.
Have you ever heard of the wolves of what was it? The wolves of Finland or the wolves of Vikland? I think it was.
No.
They're essentially a modern day tribe of Norsemen, even though most of them aren't Norse, and that's what they do. They just drink beer and fight. They're all Norse pagans.
Wait, what are these called? This is
I
hilarious.
believe they were called. I didn't look into them very heavily. Someone that I knew was familiar with them. The Wolves of Vinland or the Wolves of Vikland. I can't remember. I think it was Vikland, but I'm not quite sure. I don't remember.
Sounds hilarious.
By the way, Gus, before this is irrelevant basically, but this is just a quick question, and then we'll move on. Have you ever read God: The Failed Hypothesis?
No.
Oh, it's one of my favorite books. It's one of the books that led me to study atheism, which is where I am today. I really recommend it. It offers very good arguments too.
Yeah, I've read that, but I just don't know why anybody. I think the best book that was ever written as an argument against religion, regardless of whether you're religious or you're not, I think it's always interesting to read about those things. But was Antichrist by Nietzsche. I think that was the best book that was ever written on the subject.
Nietzsche, yeah. I don't know. Friedrich Nietzsche. I don't know.
You don't know?
Don't know. I just don't know about Friedrich Nietzsche. I just don't know.
Not a lot of people do.
Have you read
He's a depressing fucker. First of all, I mean, I have a feeling. I mean, you can't take Freddie Nietzsche out on a fucking date or anything because he'd just be a depressing fucker. Him.
Have you ever read The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins? That's also another good book of mine.
I listened to it on audio tape actually. Okay, I've got the video queued up. Okay, hang on a sec here. Just
you should play it.
Hang on. Now, can you guys see my screen?
I can see it.
Okay, all right. Now, can you see my pointer?
Okay.
Okay. Now, you keep your eyes here because this is where Justin Trudeau is going to come from. Okay. Now he's going to come down here to this scrum. He's going to come down here to this scrum, and he's going to grab this dude here because he wants this dude to come with him for a vote or whatever. I think that's actually Jason Kenney, who is on the opposite side. Now he's going to come down there. Now watch what happens. Now there we go. He's coming down. Says, "Come on, you motherfucker." Now I paused it for a bit. Now as he grabs him, if you see my pointer here. If you look just to the right of the dude with the snowy hair, this woman, you can barely see her right now, but watch her. He bumps into her. She's like, "Oh, my tit!" But he can't see her when he bumps into her. Did you guys notice that?
Yeah.
He can't see her. His back is to her. Okay, well, these dudes are like, bow to your partner. Hang on, there's more. Bow to your partner.
No. I just want to clarify something. Your desktop is like blinking on and off.
Does that affect how you guys are viewing this, or what?
Oh, well, yeah, it kind of does a little bit. It's distracting.
I'm sorry about that. But anyway, now he comes back because there's a flap of some kind. You see him come back.
Mm-hmm.
He's not sure what happened, and they get after him. And this chick here, she starts in on him, and he's like, she starts railing away, and he's like, "Fuck off, you lady, you want a fresh one?" And, and he goes back, and he starts something, and then all of a sudden, the other side rushes in, bench clearing brawl, hockey style. And see this chick here? She's not going to take any shit. And then the Speaker of the House stands up and says, "You motherfuckers behave yourselves, or I'll have yous all rolled out on your fucking head." And that's Boobygate. That's it, fellas. That's
what
it.
A ridiculous uproar.
The funny thing is, he apologized for it, and then later that day, he apologized for it again. And then there was a thing about the Native Americans, some kind of apology, where he also apologized for Boobgate there as well, because it was going to take away from the apology that he's going to send to Native
But you
Americans.
guys could see right there in the video that he didn't mean to do anything to that poor woman. He had his back to her. It was completely unintended.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing, I'm pretty sure he would have fucking given that other chick a fucking good fucking snap in the head if she'd have kept pestering him. But then as soon as it got hostile, as soon as everybody got upset, the enemy bench rushed over. I thought there was going to be a big, especially that the Sikh was there. The Sikhs don't fuck around. And then the other chick was going to go over there with her hands in her hips. I thought she was going to go over there and fucking martial arts, fucking kick ass. But then the Speaker of the House stood up and said, "Oi, you fuckers, get the fuck down."
One of the opposition leaders referred to it as a molestation.
A molestation? How the fuck do you molest somebody with your backside?
Well,
how do you do that?
It's hard,
like,
but it takes years of practice.
It's like,
if you look at the definition of molestation, right? Yeah, it is partially there, like in the smallest, because you can molest someone by like irritating them.
I suppose, but I mean, like the guy was in and out. If you'll pardon the fucking, he was in and out in seconds. He barely understood what happened. He had to have it explained to him later. I mean, seriously, it's like, my shoulder blade accidentally impacted with your boob or my elbow or whatever. Like, sorry, lady, sorry, it's done. Fuck.
I used to follow the news very, very closely, but the more stories I seen like that, the more disinterested I became in following politics, because it's such a vacuous waste of time.
I know, but politics needs you, Kiter. Politics needs people to follow it. Politics needs people to vote over and over again if necessary across the span of 20 years to fucking clean it up. The biggest detriment to a democratic system is when the people are no longer invested in the fucking process. And
no, hold on. I didn't say I wasn't invested in the process. I said I wasn't interested in following it, which is a distinction, to be sure.
Well, I mean, how invested can you get in the process when you don't keep your eyes on what's going on?
Nationwide, as opposed to like locally, because I follow local events very closely. I was always surprised when I talked to my friends and they wouldn't even know who our governor was. Now I live in Ohio, so it's really surprising because I'm like, he's running for office, he's running for the presidency, and they wouldn't even know. They had no idea who John Kasich was. That's depressing. That's real detachment from anything like that.
John Kucinich?
John Kasich.
Oh, okay.
Man, I'm Australian. I don't even know him.
Not that guy, Rob Blagojevich.
No, the Mr. Rogers guy is running for president in the United States.
I want to be president. I want you to be president with me.
I mean, if Mr. Rogers had ran for president, that would have been awesome. I would have loved to have him.
Hey Gus, have you ever considered becoming a voice actor? Because you make you would be great for satire.
I know, but I've never been able to find a place that wants voice actors. I've been looking around, and I don't know. I haven't been able to find the right.
Well, hey, I'm making a video game. You can be a voice actor for my video game.
What kind of video game are you making?
Just make it a very old school RPG. That'll be mainly narrative focused. So it's like the choices you make affect the rest of the game. It's one of those.
Aha! Yes, you can take the mystical armor and weapons and
no,
go and
no, there's no magic. There's no magic.
Aha!
Here is your magic. It's like a
your plus RPG. One. Here is your +1 AK-47.
I was making an RPG similar to that, where like you would have a level, and like, sorry about that. My ADD kicks in at times. I came up with an RPG as well, but it's a satire of modern day politics in the future, where you have like a feminists, neo-Nazis, hooligans, and you have all these people who are literally at war with each other, and you have even extraterrestrials and all these races and all these terrorists and whatnot. They're all trying to take over the government, and you play as this misanthrope, and you just simply want to take over the world. You want to become a dictator, and I'm planning on this game being like Half-Life 2, where you don't get detached from the game. There is no cutscenes. It's like everything's in first-person mode, like in Half-Life 2.
Okay.
I think you'd like that game, because it makes fun of literally every human being in existence.
Oh, good.
I think feminist neo-Nazi is kind of an oxymoron, isn't it? I mean,
I was actually about
no, feminist against neo-Nazi.
I haven't seen any of those myself.
No,
I mean,
feminist versus neo-Nazi.
I'd love to see a feminist neo-Nazi. I think that'd be fucking hilarious.
No, feminist versus neo-Nazis.
Oh, that'd be
like
much
you
better.
have feminists.
Big sharp knives at the end of their boots, fucking for kicking guys in the nuts while they goose step, fucking.
Like Gus, imagine there's a woman going around shooting men, and like one of them shoots a husband, and according to the game script, she goes down on her knees crying over the husband, and the feminist is like, "Go home, you're free now from the evils of the patriarchy."
I think Manuel just popped in right to see whether or not Gus was still around.
Yeah, that's right. It's Gus there, cocksucker. I'm not going in there, rotten bastard.
Yeah.
So,
but how would you like that? How would you like to play a game where
his ear holes turn to assholes and shit on his shoulders?
By the way, I have a question for you, Gus.
Yes.
Where does your avatar come from? Where does that
That's
robot
Warhammer.
character come from?
That's Warhammer 40K. You're looking at a chapter veteran captain of the Blood Angels chapter of the Space Marines.
Never heard of it.
I know. That's okay. I don't think any less of you for it.
He does.
I do not.
He does.
Terrible
he really
lie.
You, I don't.
Listen,
I
listen.
don't-
You've
I don't-
already fucking barked a coil on my pillow tonight, Cater. Don't make it any fucking worse, okay?
That wasn't me speaking, you buffoon.
That was Oz. That was Oz.
You
Boss,
sound so much
disguised-
alike.
You disguised your fucking voice as a member of the Normalati. You.
I'm a wizard like that.
Normal Lottie. Guys, I have news
What
for
I was
you.
going to ask though was,
Justice
were you
Brony.
excited about the Warhammer video game that had just come out, Total War?
Oh, I love Total War.
Okay.
Absolutely. I love. Yeah, totally. Warhammer Total War and Warhammer Total War 2.
Yeah.
Or
I
no,
think that was the-
Dawn of War and Dawn of War 2. Love it. Love it.
Okay. I was just curious because I had heard some not great things about the newest one.
I do wonder though, how many people have watched this live stream? Because 2 hours ago, when I checked the live stream, there was already 2 dislikes, and there you have people coming in at randomly. I think they're the same person, obviously, but I do wonder how many people saw this live stream. I guess we'll find out when I.
Well, you're the
suffer-
administrator,
When you
don't
go and
you?
look through all the comments. That cocksucker Gus signed not Manuel.
Yeah. By the way, guys, I want to start with Cater. Where would you put me on the political spectrum?
Oh well, you know me. I don't. Maybe you don't. I don't really put much stock in the whole political spectrum thing. It's not a very useful heuristic for like gauging people. It's not like IQ. That's something that's actually useful. But I don't know. I'd put you as like a right-leaning libertarian. With,
I'm not a libertarian because I favor an income tax.
Yeah. But I mean, that's you asked me where I put you. That's where I put you.
Well, how can you be a libertarian if Pod Scott? How are you, buddy?
Hey, man. How are you?
How are you? Well, how did you find these people?
I'm just looking at Hangouts. It's like, okay, what's brewing? What's going on? So I'm
The
just
same
like
thing.
clicking on
The
like,
same thing happened to me, man. A couple of weeks ago, I saw this Hangout suddenly pop up in my G Plus stream. I'm like, who the fuck are these guys? So I jumped in, and it was like a free fire zone of ideas, and nobody was talking about whether God existed. It was like a fountain of chocolate for me to dive into.
Yeah.
These guys are all great. Even the ones that don't like me, they're fantastic. They throw ideas back and forth, and none of them ever heard of a headset, so there's constant echo.
Oh, I have a
going on.
headset right now, though.
It's like being at a Deep Purple concert. It's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
my
You know,
biggest regret is not being in the anal Hangout a couple days ago at Nadia's room.
The anal hangout where we were doing the
movies.
That was actually done months and months ago, eh?
Oh, was it?
Yeah, Sean Hines is because he's an absolute fan of Nadia. And I'm sorry, guys, I'm talking kind of inside baseball stuff here. We'll get back on topic in a sec. But Sean Hines has been going through all of Nadia's Hangouts and finding like the funniest moments of. And so we had that months and months ago. But yeah, that was pretty funny where we sort of put anal into the movie titles of as many. And it was nice to get her to smile for a change.
Well,
those of you guys, how many of you guys here know who Scott is? Who Positively Godless is?
I don't, but he looks
I
like
saw him
a
on
rather
one of
jazzy
your
bohemian
hangouts.
fellow.
I saw him on one of your hangouts.
Oh, cool.
He's a good fellow. He's a stand-up guy. He's good to have around.
Not necessarily, no, but just kidding. No, it's funny, Gus. I was literally screaming at my screen, going, "Brokeback anal."
Brokeback
I was so mad. Yeah, I was so mad.
Clearly,
so
you
mad.
chaps are too easily amused.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
some of us don't have a high-class notion of amusement, but we attempt to hold our monocles in while taking tea.
I mean,
I
everyone
feel
has a
as if you're
different sense of
mocking
humor.
me.
I have a different.
No, not at all, sir. Not at all, sir. He's a good chap.
I might have to challenge you to a duel.
You might indeed, but since you've already barked a fucking deuce on my pillow, prick.
By saying that
You're
Atlas
so hung
Shrugged
up
was a good
about
book.
Ayn Rand. It's terribly amusing.
Fucking Ayn Rand, fucking psychopath.
Listen, regardless of whether or not you like her, she's a good writer. So
Yeah. I give her credit on that regard, but
There you go.
by the way, is everyone here an atheist? Because I've been an atheist since I was 11 years old.
No, I don't like the term. I think it's a really irritating term because
Yeah,
it
don't you identify
denotes-
as an apatheist, as in like you're an atheist, but you don't care about religion?
I'm actually born again 15 minutes ago, so. I rewatched Nephilim Free. I'm like, oh, I'm born again.
Oh my god! Isn't that the dude who says that there were giant humans who were bred from angels?
Oh,
and
they all
they
believe
control
that.
the world.
Why?
Well,
Why not?
They all believe in the Nephilim. They all listen, man. I gotta take you on the magical mystery tour of the fucking great debate community, man. You're gonna. I will show you wonders that will take your breath away and fucking terrors that will haunt your soul, man.
Oh,
I will
man.
introduce you to people that think the Earth is flat. That the
Dude,
Earth
I
is,
already deal with those
the
people
Earth
on a
is
daily
the
basis.
Earth is 4,000. The Earth is 6,000 years old. That fucking God is real because they fucking say so.
And Adam
The Bible says
fucked the dinosaur.
They'll tell you that you can't rely on your senses and reason for anything. Oh, such sights I will show. I'll be like Pinhead. I'll be like Pinhead in the fucking Hellraiser movie, man. By the time I'm finished, you're gonna be screaming and running for the fucking door. I'll be like, where are you
gonna
going?
tear his soul apart as well?
Oh no, they will. I'll just be standing there clapping, going, "What's the matter? What's the matter?"
I have an interesting view of the Bible itself. I mean, of course, reading the Bible is one of the things that led me to being an atheist. I used to be a hardcore Christian, but there's a lot of atrocities in the Bible, and not to mention...
No, there's no atrocities in the Bible. No. That's
I'm
just
also
your
not
imagination.
straight.
No.
I'm also
They
not
never have.
straight. I'm not straight, and I don't like how the Bible says I should be executed for not being straight.
No, that's the Old Testament. That's the Old Testament.
Oh, yeah. Jesus
no, that's
said...
the Old Testament. No. Shh.
So,
It's like a salad bar.
Gus and, what was your name, sir?
That's Scott. That's Scott.
Okay. Positively, it just says that. Positively, Scott. So you were both sort of your main thing online is sort of the great debate circles with like a bunch of atheists arguing against a bunch of Christians.
No,
No?
I don't go on here much, but I have some fun behind the scenes, which I gotta talk to Gus privately on.
Oh, I see.
I-
Shady
I-
stuff.
I may change my voice every once in a while.
Oh, so he has to.
By the way,
he has to make up a new he has to make up a new persona and not have me narc him out 10 seconds later because I figured out his voice.
Wait, hey man, check this out. Check this out. Watch this.
Hey y'all, how y'all doing? Y'all cool? Everyone good?
That's
not
good.
bad.
That's good. And now
You
that I know
can't-
that's the voice, I'm not going to turn around and go, Scott, is that you?
Yeah.
Like, cocksucker!
Hold
Right.
on. What
I had to
what do you
spend
say?
$300 so Gus wouldn't rat me out.
Hey guys, there's one argument that I recommend you use in a debate next time with the theist on the question, does God exist?
I don't
if
debate.
they're going to argue that there's a transcendent being or an omnipresent being, here's the argument. Okay, if God exists, then he is transcendent, meaning he's outside space and time. However, if God exists, he is also omnipresent. To be transcendent, a being cannot exist anywhere in space, and to be omnipresent, a being must exist everywhere in space. Hence, it is impossible for a transcendent being to be omnipresent. Therefore, it is impossible for God to exist. What's your thoughts on that argument?
Oh,
My thoughts are
but-
that it's all completely pointless,
but
and
what
that
okay,
completely bores me.
Yes, Cater, that goes without saying. Yes, Cater. That's the ultimate trump card for this debate. You're absolutely right. However,
What's your
if
thoughts
you-
on my argument, you
if you
guys?
hang on a sec. If you want to actually play the game with the midgets, you have to get down with the midgets and play the game. Now, when you do that, what they will respond to you is that the God that they talk about is a God that exists outside the world but is able to reach into the world because he is at all times, at all places. So he's immune to temporal consideration because he is everywhere at once. And he can reach into reality anytime he wants to, and he's not subject to any of the laws of reality except for certain laws except for things that would be illogical, like that God cannot be, and not be at the same time and that sort of thing, the law of excluded, but this is their response, is that and when it this would be their response, is that God is outside of space and time, but he reaches into space and time when he feels like it. And the reason that he's omnipresent is that he exists timelessly, and therefore can affect all time. It can affect all time and everything that goes on throughout all time in the real world.
Yeah, I mean, like, how can you be omnipresent and outside of space and time at the exact same time? It's really, it seems like a paradox right there. And
Hey
also,
guys, do you always
here's
refer
another
to
argument.
religious people as midgets?
What's that?
Do you always refer to religious people as midgets?
Many of them
No.
are not midgets, but you have to understand something. A lot of the ones that show up at the Great Debate community are stunties. They are some.
Oh, I
Ask
can
Scott, man.
imagine.
Ask
Hey,
Scott.
I mean, hey,
Oh man.
would you consider someone who's 5'4" to be a midget?
No,
'Cause
I'm
an
not.
atheist,
I'm
and
not talking. I'm not talking about their physical stature, man. I'm talking about their mental stature. I mean,
Yeah.
if
okay.
for some of these
Okay.
guys, if brains were dynamite, they couldn't blow their fucking nose. I mean, seriously.
Here's another argument that I would use in a debate against a theist. An all virtuous being literally cannot exist. So here's the argument. God is, by the denotation offered in the dictionary, it is a being that which no greater being can be thought. Greatness includes the greatness of virtue. Therefore, God is a being than which no being could be more virtuous. But virtue involves overcoming pains and danger. Indeed, a being can only be properly said to be virtuous if it can suffer pain or be destroyed. A God that can suffer pain or is destructible is not one than which no greater being can be thought. For you can think of a greater being, one that is non-suffering and indestructible. Therefore, God does not exist. Again, you can.
They would dispute. They would begin by disputing your definition of their God. You see, Christians are very.
God, the God of
Many of these apologists are very slippery. Okay, God is. They're perfectly happy to allow you to believe that God is omnipotent, for instance, until you start to try to pin them down on what that omnipotence means, right? Until their omnipotence does something that they're not comfortable with, and then all of a sudden they start to backpedal on what and they do this for all the omnis. They do this for omnipresence. They do this for omniscience. They do this for all the omnis. They also do it for the notion of, all virtuous, all this, all that. Some Christian apologists will even go so far as to say that God is not all loving, which is a pretty big step when you consider that most of us have been taught that God is love. Well, a lot of Christian apologists now will come and say that God is not all loving. God hates sin, for instance. So, that's sort of the range of responses that you're going to be faced with.
Yeah, the whole love the sin or hate the sin thing, like for example, let's go on to one topic, the topic of homosexuality.
We're boring Kiter to death, by the way.
Yeah, let's just finish one thing here. Like for example, the Bible, the most common interpretation of the Bible is that homosexuality is a sin. Now, by many of the people you've spoken to earlier, I am a degenerate faggot. But here's the thing: if homosexuality, if it's completely genetic, then that means people are born literally a sin. So how can you hate the person? How can you hate the sin but love the person when that person literally is a walking, breathing sin?
There are people. They will tell you that there are people who are born with genetic predispositions and predilections towards theft, towards murder, towards all sorts of sins. But just because you're born with that predilection doesn't mean that A, you are to be any less loved than anybody else, and B, that you are to give in to your predilections. Now, there are also Calvinists who believe that that God has decided way ahead of time that some people are going to be regenerate and some people are going to be basically depraved and to be thrown away. They say, for instance, there's a passage that says, I think in the book of Job, that says, does the potter not have the right to do with as he wishes with the clay, to make some vessels for pure use and some vessels for ill? So the Calvinists, who personally I can't even fucking stand, the Calvinists will tell you that, some people are just meant to be degenerate. They're meant to live their lives degenerate, and that's all there is to it. And God has already selected who's going to be saved and who isn't. They call them the elect, and that's that. So knock yourself out.
By the way, remember Ted Haggard, that hypocrite who said that gays should be executed, yet he was caught with male prostitutes like 5 times in a row?
Yeah, he was having intimate male massages that involved a little bit of
It's rather
involved a
frequently,
little
I
bit of
think
peekaboo. I see you there.
And also the Catholic Church, who states that the Catholic leaders who say that homosexuals should completely abstain from anything involving homosexuality. These same people, these same leaders, like to molest boys and cover up sexual assault of young boys and girls, and they've been doing this for centuries now. That is disgusting and hypocritical.
There
of
is
course,
why they
you
should be
you have to be specific when you're talking about those things. You can't, just
Okay, look at the Vatican. Look at the Vatican.
Well, the
Look at
Vatican,
the Vatican.
the Vatican isn't a place where they send boys to be molested at like a factory. Okay. Now I understand. Hang on, Nero. I understand that the entire Catholic Church bears the horrible stain every time a priest is transferred rather than prosecuted. You know, the Catholic Church has to wear that. That's a stain on its legacy. Okay. But first of all,
I'm talking about
hang on, Nero. First of all, these days when they find a diddler priest, okay, they do something about it. The old legacies of the guy just gets transferred, that's gone now. If they find a diddler priest, he's given over to the law, okay? Because they understand that the laws of Caesar are to be fucking paid attention to. So, now we're dealing with the stuff that got done in the past. And the stuff that got done in the past, the Catholics have to wear that shit. But
I like Gus's authoritarian streak. It's quite amusing.
But wait a minute.
What about my authoritarian streak?
Wait, can I clarify something very quickly? Can I clarify something very quickly? I'm not saying that every single one of them. I'm referring to that incident where Pope Benedict tried to protect the pedophiles. I mean, let's face it. Pope Benedict looked like Pope Ratzinger looked like the Sith Lord.
Okay, are we talking about Benedict or Ratzinger?
Benedict.
Are you sure? Because you just gave 2 popes' names. Is it Benedict or Ratzinger?
I'm talking the Pope before Francis. I thought he was named both Benedict and Ratzinger. Am I wrong?
Benedict. Oh no. Okay, so this is Pope Francis, and the last one. Okay, yes, Benedict. Okay, right. It means I got them mixed up earlier. Yeah, you're right. Pope Benedict. Did make that mistake. You're right, and it was a terrible mistake. But, I mean, this is not going on under Pope Francis. We are going to see a new Catholic Church emerge, and the fact that it went on this long is a terrible stain. But, again, I just hear way too many people who want to throw out the entire Catholic Church and all the good that it's done. And it has done good. On numerous instances, it has done good. But I see a lot of people that want to throw out all the good that it's done because of a relatively small group of fucking obviously sick fucking priests that are being protected by a whole bunch of fucking idiots.
Indeed, that's my position as well. I'm glad to hear you say that because when I talk to other people that are like very vocal atheists, and they'll always discount anything that's been manifestly good that's been done by a religious organization simply because they're religious. And I don't much care what their motivations for doing the good thing were, like they do. I care mainly that the good was done. Primarily.
Now let me be clear about something. I take a dim view of a religious organization that'll make you sit for an hour and listen to a fucking lecture or a sermon for an hour before they'll feed you when you're hungry. I take a dim view of that. But having said that, these guys are often doing the kind of work that governments either can't or won't do, particularly in the States. A lot of churches are taking up the slack for stuff that, frankly, the government should be doing.
No, dude. I don't think Manuel would hate you as much as he does now if he were to listen to you right now.
Well, I don't particularly. Oh, a Catholic Marxist? Really?
Yes.
How the hell does that work?
He says that quote about religion being the opium of the masses is misquoted. It's just referring to how people in the working class need religion to survive or to deal with the pains of the oppression of the bourgeoisie.
Well, that's what an opiate is for. It's to help you deal with pain.
Yeah. And
so what's he on about?
he was saying that Marx wasn't trying to portray religion as a bad thing. He's just saying that the basic fact that religion is used as an opium to get people through the pain of being oppressed by the evil rich people. You know.
Is that a martini, Scott? Can I have one too? I think I need one.
No,
Yes,
it's
please.
actually it's a Moscato, but I just like this glass.
Oh, good man. Moscato is the
Moscato?
best.
What's a Moscato?
It's a
Sounds
wine.
like some,
It's a wine.
sounds like, I was gonna say it sounds like something that bites me and tries to take my blood.
Look at
Hey,
this.
why do
Look
you-
at this pleb. He doesn't even know Moscato. Come
Well,
on.
you know, not all of us can be wine drinkers, you know.
I love it when you mock
Well,
him.
on that note, I actually got to leave, gentlemen. but
Listen,
it was
Cater.
good to talk to you.
Cater, it was good to talk to you, man. Circle me up, and you know, I'll invite you to some of my midnight salons periodically.
Yeah, they're
that
fun.
sounds fun, Gus. And I hope to meet you some other time, positively.
Yeah,
And
cool.
thank you for inviting me, Nero. It's been amusing.
Positively's a good shit, man. He's a good man to know.
Yeah, I like to have fun on here now. I don't take things way too as serious as I used to.
Although he's been in some hangouts that have turned into fucking dogfights, though, and there's Scott in the corner just sort of scratching his head, going, "I'm a stranger in a strange land."
But man, I love when you go off, man. That's like I get so much joy when you freak your shit out.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've had to behave myself around here, man. Nero didn't put up with no shit, boy. He's fucking quick on the kick. So yeah. So
I
you know.
I want to see a longer exchange between you and Darwin's deity.
Oh yeah, fucking hilarious. That guy fucking
Darwin's
kills me.
deity.
Yeah. You
Oh,
never
man.
heard of Darwin's deity? Have you heard of Darwin's deity?
No. Wait.
Oh, dude.
That name sounds ridiculous.
I mean, this guy is a fucking piece of work, man.
Wait, is
If
he
you've ever-
saying evolution is Charles Darwin's god?
Yeah, pretty
Oh
much.
my fucking god.
Yeah, this guy combines the worst aspects of presuppositional Christian
And
apologetics.
this is why
with-
eugenics will come back in the future, you guys.
Oh God.
Well, it's funny that the way that he conducts himself, he's like a prosecuting attorney.
Yeah.
And you're,
Oh,
and you're on the stand.
I plan on being an attorney myself, actually.
Oh
Yeah,
man,
well,
it's rough.
He controls the narrative. He will not do a back and forth. He's there to show everybody how fucking stupid you are. And if you get in his way, he freaks out. He goes freak-a-leak. I mean,
Gus, did you see the video that I was on recently?
Oh no, I don't think I saw that. Which one was
Yeah.
that?
Let's be fair, you guys. We've been on this live stream for 4 hours. Actually, more than 4 hours. We almost been on for 5 hours. Because we've been on here since 9 o'clock.
Has anybody liked you?
Yeah, there's 3 people who like this live stream.
And how many dislike?
2.
That's all right.
Well, you're
That's a win.
ahead by a bit.
No, it was a video that I was in his Hangout, and I just interviewed him because that's what we do on our show. if
Oh
we have a
yes, I
guest
did
on.
see that. I did see that. Yes.
And
Yes,
he,
you were like,
he was
so
swerving.
what do you? Yeah, what do you think? Well, I mean, people don't like me because they're wrong, because they're morally bankrupt. And you were all like, so you don't think they don't like you because you're a fucking asshole? I'm paraphrasing. Because you're a fucking asshole? He's like, no, they don't like me because they're a bunch of fucking cornhole plukers. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm laughing my brains out because I know the whole audience is just rolling their fucking eyes all the way back in their head. I'm
Yep.
like, oh fuck me.
Yeah, that was fun. I mean, with us on our show, we take the polite approach, and a lot of people don't like that. They hate us for that, but that's how we roll, and that's kind of.
I'm the
That's way
opposite.
it is.
If I'm
That's the
arguing
way.
against someone, I tend to actually manipulate their emotions. Like, for example, I'm going to use my weakest arguments first, and then I'm going to keep going on and use stronger arguments against them.
My only objection to your show, Scott, is that I think sometimes the fucking guests grab you by the ears and swing you around, and that's really unfortunate. But
I'm not a big fan of
Yeah.
the far rightists who like my channel. I don't like the religious right. I mean,
But-
if you think Vlad was bad, look at Delta USA. He's a absolute moron. He's a black fascist and Zionist.
What?
He's a black fascist Zionist. And
That's crazy.
Love the internet.
Yeah.
There's some crazy people out there, Oz.
Yeah. By the way, what do you guys think of the Amazing Atheist and the Drunken Peasants?
I don't care.
I dislike the drunken peasants.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of kakapupu humor. You know, I kind of grew out of that when I was about 11. You know,
I'm a fan of like really, really dark and
it's like the thing. One of the things that bothers me is I've watched a couple of drunken peasant shows where, you know, they're having a serious conversation with somebody, and then somebody will just sort of cut in and go, poo poo fucka fucka fucka, and you're just like, wow, that's just like you're having a conversation with somebody, and somebody's kid who needs fucking Ritalin just comes running up on you. You know, you're just like. And you just want to give them a fucking 400cc main line of Ritalin right to the neck and sit them down with a cushion. You know, he's like, just sit the fuck down. But I understand that's, you know, they pander to their audience and they know what they're doing. They know their audience and they play to them, and that makes them intelligent in that respect. But when it comes to the great debate community, they're good for fuck all as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I agree.
I should join your debate community. You should circle me up, man, because I tried circling you up and it wouldn't let me. It said you had to add me first.
Oh, did
I
it?
circled you, Nero.
We'll sort you out. We'll search you out. Hang on.
Yeah, Nero of Rome. That's it.
I'm gonna get off here. I'm gonna say goodnight. I have some work to do. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, see you, man.
All right, man. Good to see you again. Good to see you, Scott.
Always, Gus. You used to make me laugh all the time, so it's always good to talk to you.
Take care, brother.
Yeah.
Bye.
I think I'm gonna end the live stream in like 3 minutes now. So everyone, give your final thoughts. Us, what was your thoughts on this hangout and what other things you have to say?
Well, I think it's interesting just the fact that we went through, you know, race IQs to
God,
all
and then we
sorts of
went
controversial type shit. Well, yeah, but I do like the fact that we had a couple of people that are definitely like on different sides of the spectrum that are actually willing to fucking talk about shit.
Yeah, my point was to invite both leftists and rightists so we can have like a debate kind of thing. Well, argument, more or less, but still, I wanted a civil discourse. That's why I invited Marxists, religious rightists, far leftists, secularists. I invited people like, Gus is gone, and he obviously didn't give his final thoughts, but whatever. Rex, you missed out on a lot, man. And I guess he's gone. Okay, that was it. Fuck you all.
Yeah.
I hope you all enjoyed this 5-hour live stream, and I hope you enjoyed. Have a good rest of your night or morning, depending on your time zone, or afternoon if you live in Australia, like this cunt right here. And I hope to see you later. Bye.
See ya.